Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tea with Trashellie, not sponsored by Yui Hirahara. This is Ashley,
And this is Elle.
and this is the podcast that we host in our I Love You Discord server. Tonight, we're going to be doing something special. It's been almost a year since our last episode, and we've decided that despite I Love You still being on hiatus, we really miss doing the podcast, and we decided let's get together with our server and let's do a Q&A special. So here we are in our server right now, and a bunch of our members are here in the chat, and they've got so many questions for us.
Yeah, so we'll be going through and we'll be answering our questions from the chat. We'll try to get to our questions from submissions and just have a nice open dialogue.
And if it turns out that things run a little long, as you know, sometimes things do with us, perhaps we might even be able to do a second follow-up episode. We'll see how things go. All right, Elle, would you like to find us our first question?
Yeah, so our first question that we want to start with and get into is from Leo, who asked thoughts on the long time skip, how we will get into it, how it will start there, etc.
Oh boy. So, first of all, I do feel like this falls a little too much in the plotting kind of prediction that we're not as good at, but we can do our best, right? Um, this is like where
Yeah.
I get really hung up. I feel like I've got a decently better idea of how I think we're going to get to like the smaller time skip, right? And how we're going to get I guess I here's what I'm hung up on, right? After we do that small time skip, how long are we going to be with those characters before we finally go into the big time skip? Because things feel like we're really set up for that. It feels like we're set up for Shanae's birthday and graduation, Noel releasing from prison, and Eugene dropping the paternity bomb.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I feel confident on is that we probably go into the big time skip with people going separate ways. And by that I mean like going to college and whatever.
I actually feel like I've got a decent handle on how I think that these time skips
Ooh.
lay out based on everything that Kimchi said over the years. And again, this partly comes from like I have been following the comics since its really early days. And even though I wasn't in the
Right.
fandom, I was still reading a lot of what Kimchi herself was saying. And I've gone back through all like her past streams, as many as were recorded. You know, there's some that were lost, and I've gone through basically everything the woman's ever said that I can find. um, and so I feel like timing wise, like you said, we're pretty confident it starts with everyone going their separate ways. I
Mm-hmm.
think from both that concept and what Kimchi has said, I think it basically starts pretty soon after the characters graduate or at the
Right.
beginning of the next school year. So I think basically the catalyst is that school transition.
Narratively it just makes so much sense.
Yes, exactly. And so I think, and she's talked about Shanae's birthday, she's talked about graduation, she's talked about summer clothes, but she's never talked about anything after that. So I think that basically we go through the small time skip, we get to Shanae's birthday, we see things play out with those kind of big springtime events and graduation. And then I'm not sure if I think that we skip right after graduation or if we get more of the summer. I lean towards we get a little bit more of the summer, but like I'm not sure if we get a whole summer or if we skip right at the beginning of the next school year, or if we get a little bit of summer and we skip like as people start to prepare for that transition. But
Ooh,
then
I can see that.
yeah, I think I lean towards that because from what she said, I think we do get a little bit of summer. And this is coming honestly largely from her talking about the clothes. She talks a lot about
Which
how
is
excited
fair.
she is. Yeah, she talks a lot about how excited she is to draw them all in summer clothes. And so I'm like, is she drawing them all in like Like, is Noel wearing a tank top in the middle of April, you know? Um, so
Listen, it is the new fashion he picked up in prison. It's his thing now.
Kosuke sleeveless trench coat. Um, so that's part of it. I feel like she's talked so much about summer and summer clothing, and there's like when we're also thinking about, I know that we very much moved away from the really classic shoujo manga template.
Obligatory beach trip.
There is a beach episode, and I think she specifically said there's not, but
Unfortunately,
unfortunately,
but we
but
can dream.
dream, but we do still kind of live in that framework. And so if we're going to a
Right.
time skip after graduation, with the amount of kind of things that tend to show up in shoujos around the summertime, that still feels relevant for how our characters are and how our framework works. And also kind of brings us to that full circle since we met them all in September.
I think it's also very impactful that it is the summer between high school and college, like that summer between your childhood and adulthood. Like
Yeah.
there's something very significant about that.
Hmm.
I also think from a narrative plot standpoint, we have the fact that this paternal bomb is going to be dropped and it's going to have a lot of ramifications for the Hirohara company. Especially when, we consider what we have talked about in the past with the likelihood of the Mukoyoshi theory being true and the fact that Rand is considered the heir of the Hirohara family by law, and that, finding out that Kosuke is not actually his son and Null is means we will probably see a lot of shift in the company because obviously Kosuke will no longer be a viable heir and Null instead will be. So I think that's stuff that will be finalized before we move on, especially because if we are sending Null off to college, there's going to be new expectations now, like Null going off to university, not as the secret bastard son, but Null going off to university as the Hirohara
Hmm.
heir. Um, and again, like part of what Eugene is doing, right, is kind of stirring up what it means for the Hiroharas to have treated him the way that they did when it turns out he has actually been the heir all along, that there is this big cover up saying that it's Kosuke. There's going to be a lot of ramification for that. And I don't think we're going to move on without taking care of a lot of that and getting things set up. And I think, like you said, that gives us a lot of time in that kind of that lull between your childhood and your adulthood when you're just kind of suspended in that kind of final, what's the word I want for that? It's not nostalgia, but you know what I'm getting at. That
Yeah.
very significant period before you're thrown into that real world where, well, I guess Shanae's always been in the real world, but
Oh.
maybe for Shanae, this could be that moment where she finally gets to have that kind of, it's not going to truly be carefree because she's got a lot looming ahead of her too, but something
Yeah.
more akin to that. Like we said, there's not going to be a beach episode filler, but something that feels that way where she gets to be a teenager for a bit of time.
No, I think she totally will. And I think we're already kind of seeing the seeds of this, where this is the, like, really the first time in her life that I think she's had enough support for that. Where, like,
Hmm.
we, like, the U's and the Parks are kind of getting integrated. Like, she has a bit more of a family structure. Simhan is doing better for at least the time being. She's got these new friends who are really supportive of her. So, like, it's not just Minhyuk anymore. She's building a real relationship with Maya and Rika and Dieter and Noel and Soshi, and she's opening up to people a bit more and letting herself lean on people more. And so I think
Hmm.
both we're gonna get a bit less drama in that summer, and she is in a place to experience that a bit more. And kind of going back on what you were just talking about with Noel going off to university in that new position, when we're thinking about how we get into that long time skip, that's a big piece of it, right? Like we're talking about,
Mhm.
the kind of end of teenagehood, end of high school, start of the adulthood, going off on different paths. So we have that little limbo of summer where we get to develop these characters
Limbo's the
out.
word I've been looking for. Thank you.
You're
Oh
welcome.
my gosh.
We get that little limbo of summer, and we get to develop kind of the end of the. As you guys know, we record these live in our Discord, and we did have a bit of a derailment in the chat due to a a, a photo that someone sent and someone asking where all the characters fall on a cat dog spectrum, which we will be including later in this episode. However, it did derail and interrupt our current questions. So we're splicing things together in a way that will hopefully make more sense to people listening. So if the following sentences don't flow completely from the previous sentences, that is why, but we are attempting to pick up where we left off with the time skip question after we have gone on our hat dog break. So, where I believe that we were, I was talking about that kind of summer between and how it feels like that's going to be kind of the culmination of their teenage era. And then once we feel that, I feel like we're probably going to transition as everyone starts preparing to leave. And I think for
Yes.
the different characters, what that's going to mean is I think it's been actually confirmed. Um I can't even say if she's straight up said it on Patreon, but I know that she's talked about it outside of Patreon. I think it's been pretty much confirmed that Noel will be going overseas to England. Whether it's for the program that he has applied for and wants to be in, that's a bit more uncertain. But it seems that he's definitely
Mhm.
going to go. And I think Noel actually taking off and leaving is going to be one of the primary drivers of separating Shanae. I know we theorized about what exactly she's going to do in a previous episode, but whether or not she goes to college or keeps being Kosuke's assistant, I think it's going to be out of this immediate area. So that moves her away.
Mhm.
And if anyone wants our further thoughts on what exactly she's going to do, that was in, I believe, our first theories episode. I'll put a link in the description to whatever episode it actually is whenever I get the chance to verify. But if you want to hear about that, we have that in a previous episode. So that takes her out. Kosuke, we believe is leaving probably to go to Japan and that it's going to be a disaster, which we've also talked about previously. I'll link it if I can.
Our boy failure.
Yes. So that's our main trio all taken out of the equation at about the same point in time. And so I think that will start a little bit before the start of that kind of new
Mhm.
school year, September time, because they all have to prepare to leave and start going to these new places. And that's going to cause a little bit of a drift as they all realize that they're going in separate directions. And then our side characters do as well. We've talked about how we believe that Dieter will probably be going to college overseas, kind of going back home, if you will.
Mhm.
And then that we think like Maya, Minhyuk, that they
I mean, Maya will still be in. Wait, yeah, she's Shanae's age. Never mind.
yeah, she's Renee's age. And like, I feel like she's going to probably stay decently close to home, but
Mhm.
probably won't be in this exact town all the time. Like maybe she'll be close enough to come home on the weekends if she wants, but she won't be living at the park house anymore, probably. We also are likely going to see our side characters kind of move. And since everyone's going so far away, or a lot of them are going so far away, you need that time to prepare for where you are going.
Right.
So I think that's very much how we transition into the time skip is just that natural ending period of their teenage years and into the start of their next leg of life, which is all physically far away from each other. Then
Now,
yes,
oh, do you have more?
I want to hear what you have.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I know you did reference the episode, but I do think it's worth mentioning because we're talking about events that lead to that time skip. We will very likely see some kind of confirmation about what is happening with Shanae and Shimhan as we lead into that time skip. we have seen the seeds
Yes.
planted with Yui as Isabel. Was it Isabel or Isabella? It's Isabel, right?
Yes.
Okay. We have a feeling that this is going to be part of what leads to Shanae very likely taking her deal and eventually going to school. But like part of me wonders if there's something that Yui could do very contrived that involves Null, but with everything else that's happening, I don't think so. Um, I only think that like at this moment because we see how feral Shanae is right now, but I don't think there's a lot that Yui could slash would do. I definitely think it would have something to do with her father and, Isabel. Um, and I think, that's something that we are
Hmm.
going to see playing out in the summer. Because, something you did mention earlier is that, so far things with Shimhan are going pretty well. But, I feel
Yeah.
like leading
And
into the
we
big
don't
time
think it's going
skip
to
is
stay that way.
right. Leading into the big time skip, that's where we are going to see things falling apart. And I would like to reiterate, we have spoken at length about how we do feel like Rand will die, but we have very strong feelings that Shimhan won't. Slash, we hope he won't because we feel like it just defeats a lot of the narrative purpose of the story. And that doesn't
Yeah.
mean that Isabel wouldn't do something to destroy that relationship.
Yeah. And so, like, that comes back to, like, this is kind of the apex of our conflict between Shanae and Simhan, right? Where like things have gotten
Right.
better. We're in kind of like the calm before the storm. And that's what allows Shanae to have this kind of end of her teenagehood. And then with whatever goes down in the summer, that likely propels her into adulthood, the deterioration of her relationship with her father for whatever it is.
Mhm.
You know, is it something with him specifically? Is it something around him? Is it her wanting to protect him? Is it that relationship falling apart? We've mused on the different possibilities that we think, which again I'll link that if I can.
Right.
I'll try to like link relevant previous discussions as I can, but whatever it is, that is a catalyst for Shanae into whatever choice she ends up making and where she goes next into that propulsion to adulthood. Then we get to during the time skip how our characters kind of stay connected.
And which ones will stay connected?
What happens in that period of time that sets us up for how we come back?
And I know this is something that in various different ways we've talked about. And especially with me, it's something that evolves and changes a lot. Because for me, one of my really original thoughts on the time skip was that our main trio was going to completely part ways, and that the
Yeah.
catalyst of our second season essentially was everybody coming back together, and that it would be, them coming back into each other's lives was going to be a big catalyst for the story picking up again and finding themselves back in each other's lives and all of these unresolved conflicts. But now that we know, or we've been informed, that the characters will be in contact during the time skip,
Yeah.
it's really thrown me off, and it made me try to rethink things, and I don't feel as confident about what I think anymore.
Right. And my some of the thoughts that I currently have are I I do think that coming back together is a catalyst for how we get out of the time skip. Like
Oh
I think
yeah,
basically like everyone's return to this specific area, coming back into that physical contact is very much what
it's
starts our second season, and that's how all those conflicts come back up.
right. It's just not as dramatic, like, oh wow, you're back in my life, as like
Yes.
I used to think it might be.
Yes, and we know that specifically the main trio all stay in some form of contact. But what really gets
Right.
said, like what exactly that looks like?
Because here's thoughts, right? Like it could be, and EJ has also said this, it
Yes.
could be that Shanae is in contact with Kosuke and Noel, which I can
Mhm.
see.
And
But
I
like without like reaching our first time skip, we don't know where Noel and Shanae are going to be, right? And like I know we have spoken to death on Sokyu, and where do we think things are going to go? Like she's feral right now. She is so feral. What is Noel going to be like when he leaves prison? Is he going to be in that place where he can, face feelings with Shanae? Is she, like to me, like I guess, we have like this sense that like she doesn't want to lose him no matter the cost. But
Mhm.
like, would it be painful hanging on to him if like you've got these feelings and he's ignoring them? Is it the kind of thing where like she would convince herself that, over time they'll go away and, when you're only in contact with each other, like writing or, doing voice calls or something, maybe those feelings do quiet until you're back in each other's lives, you know?
Something that Leo just said was that Kim said on Curious Cat that the post long time skip part would be the shortest part of the story, and then also specified now time estimations aren't her strong suit. But I mean, proportions have generally been okay. So like,
I
shortest part of the
mean,
story. Okay, shortest part of the story might mean like 3 to 5 years real time. But in comparison to the other parts of the story, when we look at the whole thing, the proportions are completely accurate.
175 chapters instead of,
But it's like, when she talks about how long the beginning of the story is compared to the
right.
end part, like I think that's accurate. The proportion's accurate. It's just like what does long and short mean is a little bit less accurate.
I hope so because her estimates are a little,
Yeah, and she knows it.
And
She
this
knows
was
it.
back in the Curious Cat days before like she started rearranging stuff. So,
Yeah, so we don't know exactly how this, but Leo said, but if there isn't going to be some repairment of their relationships, that means it has to happen in the summer before the big time skip because I don't see it happening on
right.
screen. And I do agree with
Which
that for I think Shanae and Noel, especially
yes.
what we've been seeing of how hard she's fighting and how hard I think it would be for us to both know that they stay in some sort of contact and
Right.
that the end of the long time skip likely puts us on this moment where they've all physically come back into each other's life. And I think with the kind of people they are, it would be extremely difficult to write them coming back together in the way that we expect if they've left off how they are now. I think we're building up to some sort of real establishment of that Shanae Noel partnership, which leads them to still be in some contact.
I feel like that's why like her birthday, graduation, and
Yes.
releasing from prison in the same time frame is so important.
Yes, I think that's where we see this resolve.
Right. I don't know if we've said this on the pod before, but Elle and I and Bommy have talked so much in private about how we kind of had this vision. Like before the hospital arc really, started taking some twists and turns. We really had this sense that Noel and Shanae would have some kind of confession, like I guess what we were really thinking at the time was like within this time frame. That way, when we did get to that time skip, they would still be in contact. We kind of had like this idea that it could even be like like secret contact where like Shanae is working a front and Noel's kind of like doing things in secret because obviously he was his thing is going to be revenge. I don't know where we stand on that anymore, but yes, something we have always felt very strongly about is that it makes more sense for that confession slash at this point reconciliation slash everything really coming out to happen now. In fact, something we even said a lot was that confessing doesn't mean you jump right into a relationship, right?
Yeah.
Like if Noel and Shanae admit their feelings for each other, it doesn't mean that they have to be together. It's just something that's put out there so that they know where they stand with each other, especially because for somebody like Noel, who has always been in the shadows and has never really felt like people truly cared about him, it's really important for him to know where he stands with somebody like Shanae and, his feelings and her feelings towards them
Right.
and that sense of loyalty. Obviously his biggest obstacle is this fear that being involved with him will get her hurt. But now that
Mhm.
Shanae has kind of clued in to the fact that what he really fears is Yui and what Yui does to people, I think that really helps. Something that I've been saying a lot, and I don't know if we'll get to ever see this, but something I keep saying is Shanae really needs to talk to him about the things he doesn't know. You
Right.
know? Like he doesn't know about Kosuke's birthday. He still thinks that Shanae was at the Kim formal because of him. But like it was just as much because of Kosuke. Like at that point I don't think Yui was aware of Noel's involvement with her yet. If anything, it was like well, yes, obviously gun. But like it was, so like obviously, she was trying to replicate something for Kosuke, which was directly linked with gun. And it just, like Noel is we say this a lot. Noel is very blinded by his own pain and his own experiences. He's not able to see and process that Kosuke too has been hurt by Yui. He isn't able to process that Alyssa was tricked and manipulated by Yui. Like, we understand or we see that he understands that Alyssa was bedazzled by she was, what's the word? Yeah, like Yui was a sparkle in her eye, but he doesn't see how Yui tricked her. Um, so, and again, like it makes a lot of sense because Alyssa doesn't talk about it. He can't see exactly what Yui has done to Kosuke because so much of it was in the guise of a caring mother to the extent that even readers thought that, oh, she loves Kosuke so much, smothering a mother, oh, we know that trope. To the point that even when Eugene has basically brought it up to him, he's like, and I'm supposed to care because
Mhm.
he's so deep in that bitter hurt. So, like, Shanae needs to lay it out for him so that he can see this isn't because of you. Like, even if he had never shown any interest in her, she still would have been there regardless. She was there to be sex trafficked. She was there because Kosuke took some kind of interest in her and wanted a freaking friend. He just wanted somebody who, didn't see him for his money or his family name.
And we see this start to be set up, right? Where we see Shanae starting to piece things together, and
Mhm.
we see Noel piece things together, even if they're both still blinded by their own perspective. And so I think this kind of resolution is ultimately the like them putting everything out on the table. That includes their experiences, where they are, their feelings, all of that. And like you said, I don't necessarily think that translates into they get into a relationship right away. They're both still dealing with so much. They're about to go on completely separate paths, especially physically. And so it might just not be a good time for
Right.
them. But
But it
having
helps to
everything
have it
open and
out
on
there.
the table,
Right.
yeah, having it out there allows them to start establishing that partnership, even if it's not like being together romantically, so that, they stay in contact during the time skip. They're able to like be on that same wavelength with each other for the foreseeable future. And when we come back in after the long time skip, we retain that, and that sets the stage for them to both like act as this unit in this sort of like fight
Mhm.
against Dewey. And at some point in probably that post long time skip era, not at the very end, I think it's going to be before that, they actually enter a formal relationship, most likely.
Right. And to go back to what the original question was, I don't think we'll see Noel and Kosuke in contact. Um, obviously. Noel is definitely burning that bridge right now. I don't think their relationship will see any kind of repair until obviously later. Like once we're in that time skip, it would definitely be Shanae who is still in contact, which
Mhm.
I think is very interesting because, like, obviously we've seen how Shanae reacted to Soshi, but that's like very, she's heated, she's in that moment. Whereas we've seen that she's been building some kind of empathy towards Kosuke, and I'm really curious if, like, I don't think I see. So, do you think she's going to learn anything about Yui and Kosuke before we ever time skip? Or do you think she's just
Ooh.
going to think he's because, she's seen her own father fall into alcoholism, right? And
Mhm.
she obviously knows that a lot of it has to do with like stress and their money situation. So I feel like she'd have to have some inkling that like there's a reason Kosuke is acting so different and he's not himself. And then eventually we're going to have again Eugene is going to drop the bomb about his paternity. And like obviously, I don't think Kosuke will reveal it himself, but do we think there's
I
like
I think my perspective on this is I think a lot of it is going to be driven by the parallels that she sees between Kosuke and her father. And I think that's a lot of how she's going to approach it. I think she's going to get the sense that Yui was probably not the doting mother to Kosuke that she initially believed that Yui was, but I don't think she's going to understand or know the depth of it. Again, because like you said, I don't think that Kosuke is going to be able to talk about it.
and
Or like
Eugene isn't really
really
going
willing to
to tell her
clarify.
anything. You know.
Yeah. I don't think anyone else is going to give her that level of detail. So I think that she's going to get that maybe it wasn't as happy family as she had originally thought. And that part of Kosuke's descent is likely due to the tensions in their family, especially with the paternity reveal. But I don't think that she's going to know exactly what happened. And I think that also plays a part in her likely being by Kosuke's side,
Mhm.
where, like, not that I think that she wouldn't be there if she knew everything that was going on, but I think that it would impact the way that they interact in a way that I don't think is what it's going to be. Like, I don't think that type of dynamic is the same as what I'm expecting to see. So I think that she'll know, I think that she'll get the vibe, but
Right.
I think she won't know the details. And I think that's going to very much play into how the two of them interact.
Not to get like too deep into our platonic Shinsuke feelings, but right. And Kiko did say that Shanae had a lot of foresight with Kosuke from the beginning after meeting Yui. You can see after his birthday what she's like. I read that really bad. There's punctuation in there. But right, like I feel like part of it is, Shanae does have some she has built some empathy towards Kosuke. And I don't know if really empathy is exactly the right thing I'm trying to say, but we've seen like through her retrospective at the Christmas party that she knows who Kosuke is at first glance and how he behaves is not the totality of who he is. That so much of that is that it's due to how he was raised and the experiences that he missed out on as much as the experiences that he's had. So she's giving him a lot more grace than most people would, which is really important, I think, in the future of the relationship. And like you said, in her being able to deduce that it wasn't really the happy relationship that she thought it was, and that the way he's spiraling is connected to that. And like you said, like she probably would stay by his side no matter what, but especially knowing it, like we were saying, she has a bit of that protective streak to her, um and Kosuke, the wet cat that he is going to need protecting. um here's a question though. What do you think their correspondence will be like? Do you think it's just like Shanae checking in on him every so often and him just like giving her the most blank responses. Do you think, like, his hunger for friendship would, like, come out of his, like, sad alcoholism, because, like, he craves the friendship, he craves something that is sincere. Like, do we think that would rear its head, or do we think he would be, like, spiraling so badly because we don't think it's gonna be just alcohol? Um, you know?
I think it's gonna be coming largely from Shanae.
Yes.
But I think there's gonna be some, like, scenarios that kind of put them into each other's proximity, whether
Right.
that's from a distance or physically close, I'm not entirely sure, it depends on what route Shanae ends up going.
Shanae has to do
Um,
an internship for her degree.
honestly, like, potentially something like that, or, like, she comes home during the breaks and is still working, whatever it is, or they just end up crossing paths.
Because we don't know where she's going
Um,
to go to school. Yuli has
yeah.
offered to send her anywhere in the world. I do think it's possible she might end up in America because we've just seen a lot of references to that in her past. But, like, what if she gets sent to school in Japan?
Yeah, and so I feel like there's things that are gonna push them together occasionally, and I think there we're going to see that kind of, like, honestly, the Minhyuk's party vibe, where, like, he is putting himself in the position to be in close proximity to her, but he is kind of crashing out, and she is, like, worried about him ultimately, where, like, she's picking
Hmm.
him up and she's, like, kind of, like,
Stop!
carrying
That
him with
makes me
her.
feel things. You know how I feel about platonic Shinsuke.
I know, but I think that's where it's going in terms of how they are during the time skip. I think that's basically what it's going to be. Where I don't think Kosuke's going to be like, like inviting her out to the
Oh, yeah,
mall and
definitely
being like,
not.
"Yeah, I went on a bender last night. Can you come get some cheesecake with me?" But I think there's going to be things that push them together, and I think we're going to get a very similar dynamic to what we've seen with them at Minhyuk's party.
Some really good comments from the chat right now. Kiko has said they send each other a selfie once per month just to make sure each other is alive. Leo's like, selfie check. Funny. M- uh, Probably unlikely, but I love it. I want it. Um, EJ says, I agree that maybe because Shanae has to complete her contract, she works at Hirahara during breaks. I feel like she's going to continue it after college, and that's part of
Hmm.
what brings us back together post time skip, unless for
I definitely.
some
Oh,
reason she chooses to work at Hirahara full time. And I feel like she would not, unless it was some kind of stipulation of her condition with Yui. And I mean, unless she's like backed into a corner that she absolutely can't refuse. Um,
I think there's kind of two options for this. I think one is the, like, she's not able to refuse, which could either be
right.
she gets back into a corner or the end of her contract. But I think there's also it depends a little bit on how her correspondences with Noel go. I could see her choosing to go
Mm,
back if it's part of the plan,
yes,
you know?
that's true.
But if it's not part of the plan, which I also think that's a hard sell. I think that she'd need it to be really clear why this is necessary
Yeah,
and, like, what they're gonna gain from it. Because we know how she currently feels about Hero Horrorcore, and I don't expect that to change very much.
right.
If anything, get worse. Um, so if it's part of the plan and it's like a very deliberate part of the plan, I could see her choosing to go back, especially like under specific circumstances, like she gets a little bit more control in what she's going to be doing, what her role looks like,
Right.
or kind of she's backed into a corner where she's got to finish the contract. There's some other stipulation. There's
Hmm.
no other option for her. That's the other way I could see her continuing it.
I think it's likely that her breaks would be spent doing things related to her degree, probably. Like if she has to
Hmm.
do internships and stuff like that, because I feel like finishing that contract is going to be, like what brings her back there. But we'll
Yeah,
have to
very
see
much on
because
the back burner.
I can see it. Kiko also said, "We know that Kosuke values Shanae's opinion because she's not swayed by his wealth and status. So I could perhaps see drunken calls or texts like the 120s eps." Which, listen, you know what? There is something there.
I
Um,
think that's possible.
and that could be what leads to, like Shanae having to be there, as he's crashing out and, taking that Hansuke role of being like, all right, let's get you home, buddy. Um,
Oh.
and listen, once again, I want it. Like, sorry to people who hate Kosuke and Shanae's relationships in any form, but they mean a lot to me. And, like Kiko said, like Kosuke valuing her opinion just because she's not swayed by him, like them having that kind of relationship, especially, and we've said this before, in spite of her relationship with Noel, just, it,
Yes.
it means so much.
There
Um,
is so much that we gain from platonic Shinsuke. And that is like I know we've talked previously about the like Shanae is the light and Shanae is the bridge where like Kosuke so desperately needs that in his life. And like the what the two of them can give to each other when they are actually on the same page and they are
yes.
in that platonic Shinsuke relationship is like truly invaluable. And this is like I know that like Shinsuke as just a character relationship interaction can get a lot of hate because of where they are now and also the history with all of the shipping discourse in the fandom for better or worse. But the way their relationship is actually set up to play out in the comic when they start to get on that same page with each other and resolve some of their like active conflicts and like see through those barriers in each other, which we've seen the hints of already.
Hmm.
There is so much there.
Like the Null, Shine, Kosuke trifecta is just so powerful. And whenever we get to that point where they are able to actually act as a trio, whether or not Kosuke and Null are able to, like be on the same page, like if they can at least act together, they will be so
Mhm.
powerful. And, again,
Unstoppable.
Shine is that bridge who will make it happen. And I can't
And this
wait
is
for
again
it.
like and this is again like this is precisely the thing that started this entire journey where Yui was afraid of that potential alliance. And
Right.
they've very obviously been separated. And that applies to all of them.
Hi 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 says, I like the idea of Shanae and Kosuke being friends, where Shanae gives Kosuke a refreshing perspective. That's what I like about some of their scenes with Shanae being real with him and her intriguing him because she's so authentic and different from what he knows. Exactly. Like that's what makes the relationship so good. And again, like back to her reflection on him is understanding that a lot of his personality is the experiences he's had and he hasn't had, and her being able to show him things that he's never experienced and being able to reframe things in his mind. She, like, obviously this is where a lot of the shipping issues came from in the first place, but Shanae does have a strong effect on Kosuke. And it's
Yeah.
not because like he looked at her and fell in love. It's because of, like you said, she's so authentic with him. She's so sincere with him. She hasn't chased him for money or fame or anything like that. It's just that she treats him like a person, and that she doesn't disparage him because of the ways that he's different from her, you know?
Right.
The scene where he takes her out for cheesecake is really cute in that, she's just like, it's just cheesecake, bro. And he's like waxing poetic about, like the joys of really good sweets. And then she eats it and it's
Right.
like, oh shit, he right, like that, exchange. Like I don't want to call it a cultural exchange, but I guess like a societal exchange or
And
something.
that is part of what Kimchi has spoken about with Shanae and Kosuke. She's never explicitly referred to as the two of them, but we can assume where she said that like as Shanae grows up, she gains some more like refined taste, which is likely coming from more of those exchanges with Kosuke. They do
Mhm.
have that like again, like it's not exactly a cultural exchange, but like a like socioeconomic cultural exchange where they're coming from these two very different ends of the spectrum and meeting each other.
I had a thought. Maybe
What's your thought?
okay, so Shanae's probably going to go to like a really prestigious school, right? She's gonna be out of her league with people. She's really good at
Oh.
learning by experience, but she's going to be rubbing elbows with people who, you know, have more social grace, let's say, than she does. So, maybe she will like I think Noel can be of
Kind of need
assistance
Kosuke.
here, but Kosuke would be such a great, I guess, let's say, tutor to her. And how do you behave in these situations? How do you socialize with these people without making a fool of yourself in a way
And now
that she can, still maintain her sense of self without, completely becoming, these upper crust, types of people, but,
and that also
developing.
really changes the way that we've seen them so far, especially that
Mhm.
really brings back the etiquette classes where,
Oh my god,
she
right!
and Noel both so upset about them because, it was like he's just trying to change her for the sake of everyone of his own comfort and everyone else's comfort. And Noel was like, you didn't even give her a chance to learn it on her own. And Kosuke's not really doing it for her sake at that point
Right.
either. But then it's
But
this
now it's
point
a
where she
choice.
herself, yeah,
Yes.
now it's a choice. She feels like she needs it and wants it. And now she's coming to him from that legitimate, genuine place, and they can be on an actual level with each other. And it very much just shows that progression where it's gone from Kosuke and Shanae as people coming from two wildly different wavelengths and trying to like square peg round hole shove their way together in a way that is a little bit offensive to now they're working together. Now it's a choice. Now it's an active like melding of their worlds
Right,
for
like, it puts them
like
on, I
mutual
think,
benefit.
more equal levels in a way, because as much as
Yes.
Shanae is helping to reinform his world and, reshape his world. It's not all, like girl does heavy lifting for guy, they're both doing it for each other. He's helping her assimilate into this world and she's helping him assimilate into normal world. Oh god, see, this
Yeah.
is why platonic shinsuke is so important and they mean so much to me.
They have they have so much genuinely to give each other. And like the version of them that we see right now and that we have seen in the past is this version of them that has too many barriers up, right? There's too much guard, there's too much wall, there's too much self perspective and interest to get past it into how they can really like work together and benefit each other. But we're seeing those walls start to come down and we're seeing them start to be able to mesh together and really like give each other those the very very opposite strengths and things that the other person lacks, because that's the thing about Shanae and Kosuke, like Shanae and Noel mesh together because in a lot of ways they share strengths,
Yes.
whereas Shanae and Kosuke fill each other's weaknesses.
They are, like when people say opposites attract, it's in the sense that you tend to fill what the other person lacks. And that is what they do. Uh,
Yes.
Kiko says when they get along, they mesh together in a really nice way. I think when they get on, they're a calming presence for one another. And yeah, I think that's it. Um, like again, like that's the thing about like how her relationship differs with him versus with Noel, and how Shanae just has this very inherent ability to get along with people as long as they give her the chance. Like
Hmm.
she's not the one who's putting up those obstacles in most cases. It's it's the other person who's being adversarial towards her. Um
That's her
Kosuke,
dog energy. Like
right.
those it's like those people who, like, they won't let the dog in, so it becomes a conflict, but, when they put the walls down and they pet the dog gets along with everyone.
Right.
Dog brings out the best in everyone and, like,
And like, in
he'll
Kosuke's
get to it.
case, it wasn't so much that he was being adversarial, it was that the energy he was bringing did not mesh with her because Kosuke was
Mhm,
bringing the energy his mother brought to him. Um, and like and it's again, it goes back to like the way she is so real with him and calls him out on things. And like even if in that moment he doesn't get it or acknowledge it, like we see him respond to it, and that's it's very important. Like he doesn't really have that in the same way with Eugene because there's so much tension and history that is intertwined that he does not respond the same way to her calling him out. Shanae doesn't have any of that. It's easier to take her authentic call outs and try to process and internalize them.
yeah.
So I guess, that's how we can see the main trio staying in contact. Um, I
Yeah.
assume Dieter will probably try to stay in contact with everyone because he's a good boy.
Yeah, I feel like Dieter's gonna be that friend where, like, he's off doing his own thing,
He'll check
but he checks
in.
on stuff.
Yes.
He'll check in,
He'll give
maybe
them
send some memes,
updates.
ask how you're doing, yeah,
Yes.
give his little life updates. So, like, I don't feel like Dieter's going to be super deeply connected to people
Right.
during this period of time. I think Dieter's going to be, I know I said it before, I think he's gonna be in kind of a homecoming period where I really do think that Dieter is going to go to school in Germany.
Same. I feel so strongly about it. I can't see why he would stay in the United States of Korea when he misses, oh, my bad, United States of Asia. When he misses home so badly, that's where his family
Yeah.
is. He's go- he's going to go there.
Yeah, I very much think that he will. And so I think it's going to be he's in that homecoming period and he's, doing all of that kind of like self-soothing and self-discovery and living his life over there and he has a
Hopefully
life over there to go back to
hopefully
living.
getting a nice little partner who appreciates him
Oh,
and actually
yeah.
likes him.
Oh, poor Dieter. Um, but still has the plus 49 German number while living in the United States of Asia for 3 years. You're right, Leo. And so, like, I think he's very much going to be homecoming. And so I think it's going to be like when I think he's going to have them in his thoughts. And I think, pretty regularly he's going to be checking up on them. Like you said, giving updates about his life, asking about their lives. But I don't think we're going to see much else aside from that.
Mhm. Obviously, Shanae will stay in contact with Minhyuk. Should probably be in semi-regular contact with Maya and Rika. They probably have a group chat where, they talk. And Shanae, depending on how busy she is going to check in. Because I feel like a very big part of that relationship reconciling is that they are going to keep working on that. Though I do, something I
Mhm.
want to posit is, suppose things happen with Shimhan, right? What, like with Isabel, we obviously have posed different theories, like, what if it looks like he's cheating with Isabel? What if he falls
Mhm.
back into his own old ways? How is this going to be received? And how will that affect, Maya and Minhyuk's relationship as a result of that? Things like that could color things, but I feel like we've made such a strong case for the reconciliation that I feel like that's got to remain in some way, right? Like we didn't reconcile just for Maya to be the person who goes, "Ooh, you're in love," and then things fall apart.
Yeah, no, I definitely think they're all gonna stay on the current trajectory they are. I feel basically like that arc has been told, and it was done
Right.
so well and with so much care that I
It
feel
would
like
just make no sense to regress.
exactly. And I feel like There's kind of 2 ways that I can see the continued contact with them going depending on how things with, Simhan and Mina play out, where if Simhan and Mina, they're still together, they're still on good terms, which is very possible,
Mhm.
then, everyone's coming home to the park home on breaks. So, they're already just getting together naturally like that, the same way that, anyone comes home and you see your siblings and your friends and your neighbors. If things go bad between Simhan and Mina, I think that the like the kids, Minhyuk, Mai, Shanae, I think that it won't impact them. I think they all have the understanding that, whatever happens between the parents happens there. And especially because if something does go really bad between Simhan and Mina, I think it will bother Shanae. I
Mhm.
don't think she's gonna be the kind of person who will really be like, I'm cutting all these ties because, in defense of my dad.
Right.
I think it will really take a toll on her, and she'll feel for the parks in that situation. So I
Right.
think either way, I think it will flavor how their interactions go, but I think either way, they're all coming back to the same area on the breaks, and whether or not that's in the park house or in 2 separate households of the same town, I think they're going to continue meeting, and I think they will have, they've already kind of established that pseudo siblings
Right.
relationship, even if this family is not a family yet, because I know we've talked about that in how um the episodes where they all come back to the park house and have dinner and such play out. There's some thoughts about how they're kind of rushing into a family dynamic that hasn't been set up yet. But the sibling dynamic is actually much more has a much stronger foundation to it than the parent dynamic does, and I think we're going to see that prevail.
And I guess one of the things too is like if Isabel convinces Simhan to fall back into old habits and mercifully it doesn't become like a thing where it's like, oh, it looks like he's been cozying up with this very pretty lady and falling back into old habits. We kind of get this sense of Mina
Yeah.
being the kind of woman who, how do I want to say this tactfully? She doesn't have a lot of self-preservation, does she? Um, if Simhan falls back into old habits, she's probably going to be like, "It's okay. I'm going to, get you through this." Whereas we've
Yeah.
talked about how that's going to be the point for Shanae where it's like, "I can't keep doing this. You can't keep doing this." And that's probably what's going to ruin their relationship, right? Um,
Yeah.
Whereas, like,
And
in that case, yeah, it doesn't so much impact their relationship because, Shimhan he's still with Mina. Obviously
yeah,
things are a
not
little
good, but they're still together.
yeah, are things
Um
a little strained? Do they have feelings about Shimhan? Yeah, but guess what? So does Shanae. Um,
Yes. And I think Mina will continue to feel very maternal towards Shanae regardless of what happens.
yeah.
Where if Simhan does fall back in old habits and they separate, I think she's going to feel kind of protective over Shanae. I think she will still kind of even if Shanae's not around all the time, I think that she'll still be welcoming
Mhm.
to her.
Oh yeah.
And especially since, the park house was in many ways Shanae's family as she's been growing up, because how many times was, Simhan kind of passed out drunk or on overtime shifts,
Mhm.
and Shanae spent the day at the park house, or Miss Park gave her some free food from the bakery or a little bit of money to spend. So I think that has been long established where we still see in their current dynamic that Mina's not her mom, and there's still that tension of they're trying to step into a unified big happy family role without quite this foundation for it yet. But Mina is still very much a mother figure for Shanae,
Right.
and a mother support.
Yeah. Um, and she'd probably be part of what tries to bring Shanae and Shimhan back together in the future. Especially if, she can play a bigger role in trying to get him, back on the wagon. Which, I think would be
Mhm.
a very big stipulation for Shanae going back into her father's life. Is probably not just him getting back on the wagon, but like him getting on and staying on and, like showing some kind of effort. I don't think she, like if that's what drives them apart, I think she won't, return unless he's really demonstrated that he's made that effort and it's actually working this time.
Yeah. Are there are there any other characters that we think will really be in contact?
I think there are characters who won't be in contact or will try. Okay, so we haven't talked about it, but Hansuke and Kosuke, right?
Mm,
It's all gonna fall apart. We know it. The moment
yeah.
that Eugene releases that article,
I think that whole tree is going down.
what's that? Oh God, yeah.
I
Like
think that whole trio is going down.
Hansuke is going to drop Yujing the moment she does that to Kosuke. And like if she like I still think that there's going to be two articles. She's the Hirahara Kim takedown, I still think is going to be in the second half. Um, but if there's anything else in that article that seems like it's something that he unwittingly gave to her, not just the thing about the paternity test, and I feel like there probably will be, he's going to
Mhm.
realize that this entire time she has been using him. And
Yeah.
he is going to be rightfully pissed off and he's going to drop her. He's going to be hurt. He's going to feel like none of this meant anything, that this whole time it was just her trying to use him for information that she could then turn around and use against Kosuke and his family, like his whole family.
Yeah.
And we know he's defensive of Kosuke and that this is going
Yeah.
to destroy Kosuke and it's going to destroy his relationship with Kosuke because Kosuke is already suspicious of Eugene and he's already suspicious of
Yes.
like Hansuke's relationship with Eugene. And obviously, Kosuke, who's paranoid and already crashing out, is going to assume that Hansuke was in on this. Like he's dropping Yujing. Kosuke's dropping Hansuke. Kosuke's never letting Eugene back in. I mean, I'd say never. In the future, he probably will come around because like he's already making those connections that,
Yeah.
I let
A
a girl
different version of
die.
Kosuke.
Yes.
Yes.
It's just
A different version of Kosuke can let Kosuke back in, but this edition of Kosuke would never.
yeah, he's going to be so shell shocked by finding out in this manner that it's going to destroy that, even though in the
Yeah.
future I think he will be able to come around to it and acknowledge that Eugene is doing this for a higher purpose, but also we cannot deny that Eugene is doing this for self-satisfaction as well. Like she's taking great joy in being able to reveal something that is going to crush and destroy Kosuke.
And with the like Hansuke using relationship and that kind of betrayal, even, like when we get through the hurt feelings from Hansuke, the guilt from Hansuke, the like feeling like they were used, wondering how much of it was real, if any of it.
Mhm.
Like, even when we put all of that aside, at the end of the day, like you kind of said, Hansuke, I think ultimately values and cares about his relationship with Kosuke more than his relationship with Yujing. Like, we all know that
Mhm.
he's down bad for Yujing and he's like little puppy love for her. But at his core, I think Kosuke is ultimately more important to him than she is. So her being that direct of a threat to Kosuke, even if he can move on from the rest of it, just that fear of what she could potentially use as ammunition would be enough.
Right. Especially because it's like she isn't doing this in a very ethical way, you know? She's taking anything and everything Hansuke has ever said as on the table or on the record. He's never agreed to be an informant of her, but we know that's exactly what's going on. And, that's a really twisted thing to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like Eugene does care about Hansuke as a friend, but she is also the kind of person who will throw someone under the bus for her own projects. And we know that
Yeah.
this is a very near and dear project to her. So, sorry, Hansuke.
I think she'd throw basically anything away for this.
Oh yeah.
And for both Yujing and Hans, we see that like there is a lot of genuineness in their relationship. Like I know we talk a lot about how Yujing is ultimately using him, but like it's it's like a bonus to her where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I can use this person, but I think, canoodling with him. Um and so like there is that genuine relationship happening there, but both of them have things that are more important to them than each other, and we're gonna see that very much come to a head.
Kiko said it's beautifully tragic as well that Hansuke will choose Kosuke because it's proof of his unconditional love, but Kosuke will be blinded by the betrayal coupled with Kosuke's suspicions of Hansuke not being around him because he wants him to, but because he's obligated to. And I know,
uh,
like
that killed me,
Hansuke
and it's
cannot
right.
win.
No, poor
And it's
okay,
horrible.
he's gonna lose he's gonna lose his cuddle buddy. He's gonna lose his cousin, who he loves dearly. He's gonna lose probably his job and medical
Oh
license. Oh my!
yeah.
And he's done nothing wrong.
And like I know in the future that relationship will be repaired somehow. But like that's the
Mhm.
future. That's not the now.
Right.
And
Like
like you said,
I think Hansuke's gonna get it all back. Like I think
it's
everything Hansuke loses is gonna come back around.
but how long is
But
it going to
God,
take?
right, that period of time where it just he loses everything, and he didn't do anything to set any of that in motion.
And like what's he going to do? Go live with his parents while he's just like unemployed and unemployable? Like
Right. And like Leo just said, Hansuke will just completely get caught in the crossfire. And I feel like Hansuke is really our big example of like an innocent bystander made into collateral damage and caught in the
mhm.
crossfire. Because, like we just said, he's going to lose everything for a fight that he has no stake in. And
Oh, that's the worst.
that's further emphasized by the point that his mother stepped down. She
Yep.
removed the whole branch of the family from this, and yet Hansuke is still about to lose everything for a war that he never signed up for.
All because he loves Kosuke so much and he can't like leave him on his own.
Right.
We do think it would be okay, so Beck says think he'd be able to continue his practice ever again. I mean, he already talked about how hard it was for him to get his degree. Here's the thing. The reason it was difficult for him to get his degree was probably Yui. It's very
Yeah.
heavily implied to us. He doesn't realize it, but it is very heavily implied that Yui was interfering with his career, probably in order to force his mother to step down. So chances are,
Yeah.
yes, it would be easy for him to get reinstated, I think, especially
Yeah.
once
I think
Eugene drops her big article about all of the, crimes that the
corruption.
Hiraharas and the Kims have done, all of the corruption. Um because like if his license is unlawfully revoked, then I think that there would be reasons to reinstate it that,
I think basically once Yui's out of the picture, we see basically all of the barriers in Hansuke's life disappear. And I think, like, obviously he's going to have to get all of these things reinstated, his relationships, his license, but I think that he will. It's just like Ashley said, like, what does he do in that time between? Because, we're expecting all of this to fall apart now ish, in the next couple of months. And the end of the comic is at least 4 years out, probably about exactly 4 years out. So in these 4 years, what does Hansuke's life look like before he gets all of this back?
Mhm. I just
Probably really upsetting.
and, like, what's it gonna be like when we meet him again? That poor guy. Oh,
No,
I'm sad.
I know. Okay, what do we want to go to next? Because we've
Do
got
we
a question
want
about.
to talk about Alyssa and Meg?
I think Alyssa and Meg we have touched on pretty decently in the past, but we should like overview what our thoughts are
Yes.
there.
And the overview is very basically, yeah, we see them pulling apart. Alyssa's going to
Yeah.
be climbing that ladder, and by climbing that ladder, I mean she's going to be being heavily trafficked, and we know that's going
Yes, and he
to,
being abusive.
yeah, that's going to be deeply messing her up. She's going to be more and more withdrawn. She's probably not going to interact much with her family. Meg's probably going to take it personally. She's also likely to be very jealous because Alyssa is incredibly successful, to the point that even if, Meg finishes her engineering degree like she's trying to, you kind of get that feeling that nothing you really do is going to measure up to what your sister's doing, right? Like, she's famous,
Yes.
her face is everywhere, she's bringing in money, um, uh, depending on how her contract works. um,
Yeah. I think we're gonna just see that jealousy and resentment and that like distance between them get bigger and bigger. And
mhm,
so whether there's a big fight or falling out or whether they just kind of grow apart and keep harboring all of that fight within themselves towards each other, I think there's going to be so much unresolved envy
yes, I
between the
think it's
two of
going
them
to
that.
be a lot of the misunderstandings, the unresolved envy, just,
Yes.
yeah.
And like, maybe when they stop home, they'll cross paths. Maybe occasionally they'll say something to each other, but I think it's going to be extremely emotionally distant. And I think they will
Mhm.
finally start to really feel that resentment radiating off of each other. Like right now, it's so underlying.
They're trying to cover it
Like,
up with their love.
yes, like we can feel it. They inside of themselves can feel it, but I don't think the two of them feel it from each other.
Mhm.
They feel it towards each other, but not from. And I think during the time skip, they're going to be at the point where they can feel it radiating off each other. They both know that they're not in a good place, and any amount of kind of the love that they've been covering it up with will have disappeared, and it's just going to be so strong where like it will be clear that any amount of like kind of normal sibling interaction between them is a facade and is like a performance and a pretend. And I think they will feel that. I don't think they will be close. I think that they will be even less open with each other than they currently are.
And given that, we feel like Alyssa is one of the characters who will not have a very happy ending. I just feel like it means that there's not going to be much of a reconciliation between them, and that is probably going to be more of a case of Meg's own regrets in the future, which is absolutely horrible and devastating. And I don't want to dwell too long
Yeah.
on it because I will start crying about it. Um,
Like I feel like both of them will eventually get to the point in their life where they realize that that envy they had for each other, both like what's really behind it. Like I know we've talked a bunch about the envy and the resentment between the Cho sisters and how they both appear to have what the other one wants, and they both appear to have it easier, but that's not the case for either of them.
Mhm.
And I think both of them will probably come to a point of eventually understanding that, as well as, like you said, potentially like having those realizations about each other. And so I feel like they're going to resolve in that kind of way, most likely. But, what does that mean for them in practice? And how do you come back from a lifetime of like quietly resenting everything about who your sister is, only to realize at the end that you were both hurting?
Right. Yeah. Like, I don't think this is the kind of scenario that we would ever see, but like, I kind of wish that we would get to see them get into a fight where Alyssa just gets really upset and kind of lets slip, like like if it's
Mhm.
something where Meg is upset and going on about like how easy Alyssa has everything, and how hard she has had to claw for things, and Alyssa accidentally let slip like, "Oh, you think this is easy? Do you know what I've had to do to get here?" Um and I don't think
It's
we
like
would ever
that,
get that, but I wish we would,
right?
just so that
And that
Meg would understand and maybe even realize that like it wasn't even consensual.
and again, like I feel like both of them really need that fight confrontation where like we see this very opposite to the brothers. So I know we compare these pairs of siblings a lot, where the brothers have been kind of at each other's throats and very, very confrontational in sometimes positive ways, sometimes negative ways. And that has been a huge barrier for them. But then with the sisters, we see that their mutual tendency to kind of try to sweep the things under the rug and pretend that it's okay while harboring so much resentment and unresolved feelings towards each other. Yeah, Alyssa and Meg more have slow brewing resentment. And so
Mhm.
what they need is they need a blowout fight. They need that moment where they both just let all of that underlying rage out so that the other one can feel it. Because that's the thing, like, even if they sit down and just talk about it, I don't think it's going to resolve this because they're both coming from that family of like, well, you know, this is how it is, this is how we are. That kind of like that under the surface dynamic.
Mhm.
But if they get into that scenario where, a blowout fight is basically the best way that the two of them can feel what it's like to live in the other's life, and that's what they need. Where, like, if Alyssa can feel what it's like to be Meg, and if Meg can feel what it's like to be Alyssa, and what actual feelings are coming up in the two of them, what their experiences truly are, then I think that they can resolve things with each other. And so like Meg doesn't have to be trafficked to feel what Alyssa's feeling. Alyssa doesn't have to be screamed at and hit by their parents to feel what Meg is feeling, but they need to be able to feel the emotions that
Mhm.
are existing for them. They need to star in the next Freaky Friday movie. Yes, Juliet. And like that's what I think a book fight would do for them.
Right. Like ultimately they just need to know like I'm not the only one who has struggled this whole time. And that, in
Yeah.
the end, the real issue is that they were always pit against each other. Like even as they tried to be there for each other. Like we've talked a lot about how so much of Alyssa taking on this role that ultimately hurt Meg was her trying to protect Meg and herself. Like if you're good, he won't yell as much. If you're good, you don't have to listen to that. And it's just, yeah, there's so much that gets lost in the things unsaid. And
Yes.
right, I agree, like a blowout is the only way it would happen. And we do know that Alyssa is somebody who under stress can blow up. Um,
Mhm.
so I'd like to hope it would happen. I just don't know how likely Alyssa would be to reveal that kind of information. Um, I like to hope if it could be the kind of situation where she's pushed so far that like she would just explode without thinking and it would just come out. Because God,
Mhm.
Alyssa needs somebody she can confide in, you know?
Yes, and, like, Meg and Alyssa are like, the relationship they have, like, they can receive that from each other, as opposed to something like Alyssa's blowout with Noel, where we know that both they were being very honest and very dishonest at the same time, but they're neither of them are in a position to receive those
Mhm.
feelings from each other. Whereas Meg and Alyssa, I feel like could, but unfortunately, I definitely don't think we're seeing that in the big time skip. I think we're seeing that slow brewing resentment and that envy take over. I think we're seeing the start of a very cold portion of their relationship, a very
Mhm.
distant portion. I think they'll still be in some sort of contact because they are from the same family and they are ultimately very about appearances.
But being in
But
contact will just make that resentment boil more.
exactly. And if we're lucky, we'll get some sort of blowout moment at the end. You know, whether that's a blowout fight or it's just like some explosion of realization, whatever it looks like. I think we would only get that at the very end if we get it at all. That's if we're lucky.
Yeah, especially given that the Cho sisters very much are set up as a foil to Noel and Kosuke, and I don't, like we know that like yeah, I don't think we're going to get that because I feel like the only way for Alyssa to have like a happy ending is if she has somebody she can confide in, and we know
Yeah.
how we feel about that.
Hmm. It makes me so sad, but
It,
we know that it makes us sad. We've talked about it before. We don't have to do it now.
we can't talk about it because we know what happens when we talk about
Yes. We don't have time. We've answered like two questions.
it. Oh God. I mean, to be fair, like these time skip questions were kind of like a few questions, couple
There were a
questions
few
in
questions that we rolled into. I have a feeling this episode is going to be part one, and this episode is going to be the time skip plus cats and dogs episode.
one. Listen, it's fun.
What we do.
Oh,
Yeah, I feel like Alyssa might get some semblance of something. Like, if I think the most likely thing for Alyssa would be potentially reconciling with Meg, and we see that as the beginning of a potential place of healing in her journey, even if nothing ends up actually okay for her. Um, I don't I unfortunately don't see much more than that. You know, maybe she gets out of being trafficked,
right.
but beyond potentially leaving trafficking and reconciling a bit with Meg, I don't see much else happy happening for her. But I do think that we potentially see those seeds. And again, whatever happens with Alyssa, we know that she is going to be in a position where all of this will always have happened to her. And there's there's no going back to who you used to be after
Mhm.
everything that Alyssa's done. Both what she has done to herself and how much she has repressed who she really is and turned into who she thinks she has to be, how much
Mhm.
time she lost, how much she's been through, how much what she has been through has and is going to legitimately and genuinely change her. Um, but I think the potential lights in that are some sort of reconciliation with Meg and like a stopping of further harm.
The most hope I allow myself to have for her is that maybe, she would end her career and she would become a songwriter and producer in the industry, um, because that's clearly what she's passionate about. And in that way, perhaps she could be some kind of mentor to other girls in the industry. Um, that part I'm kind of yeah about because I think that kind of takes a kind of fortitude that I don't know if she'll have built. She might need to be a little more solo after the things she's experienced. But I like the idea of her trying to, be more protective of other girls in the industry, like our queen E Hiyori. Um, but I definitely could see her at least doing the songwriter, producer, writing
Mhm.
songs for other groups because one of the things is she's not going to be going to college. So it would be really difficult to walk away from
Yeah.
all of this and then go to school and then especially like you said with the things that she's experienced. Um I do think the trafficking would probably end at some point, not out of grace, but more because it girls come and go, right? She's going to be the
Yeah.
hot it girl, but eventually there's going to be a newer, younger girl who they're going to want to plaster her face everywhere. And she's going to be the girl who's getting trafficked in order to get all of the sponsorships and stuff. Fun fact, in
Yeah. And
Korea and K-pop, that is a term that we use. Quote quote getting sponsored is kind of a term for exchanging sexual favors for sponsorships. Not to be confused with, like landing a sponsorship, but um so that's a thing.
yeah.
So it would be more of
Yeah.
a, like kind of fall from grace because where does your career go from there? Especially for a girl group, especially for somebody who went solo from her girl group. I think Alyssa's going to be heavily propped up by those sponsorships. Like that's where her money's going to be coming from because honestly that's where a lot of girl groups money comes from. And then when you no longer have that, and when people have moved on to the next hot thing, no matter how good her music is, she's going to lose fans. Like her loyal fans are still going to be there, but it's not going to be anything compared to what she's gotten used to. Um, so I think that when she has that, I guess, fall from grace, maybe that could be a blessing in disguise that kind of frees her from a lot of those shackles. And maybe she could go on to be this producer and songwriter and do the things that she's actually passionate about and be more in the shadow where she no longer has to be in front of people. I kind of hope that one of the conclusions she reaches through this career is that the things she's seeking she's never going to find on this path. We talk a lot about how
Mhm.
she has conflated being loved by many as being able to fill that void she's feeling, but conditional love is never going to be fulfilling. Having to bend over backwards in order to keep people's love for you, having to do various things that make you uncomfortable in order to keep people's attention is not love, and it's not going to make you
No.
feel good, and it's not going to make you feel fulfilled. And obviously we've got this sunk cost fallacy in which she's had to do horrible self-deprecating things that are just going to make her feel sick and awful about herself, right? That disgust that she's had to go through, or the disgust that she's gone through this. And like
Yes.
there's going to be a lot of self-loathing that comes from this.
And especially for Alyssa, like girl who already she has always had such a strong degree of self-loathing,
Mhm.
loathing, and that's just from being who she is. So to also put all of this on top of it, all of these things that she didn't want to do, that make her uncomfortable, that make her feel disgusted, to put that on top of a self-concept that is already so bad and so feeling disgusted about oneself. It like I know you were just talking about how like we feel like it will probably come to an end because she won't be the it girl anymore. And I know we've talked about how we do see foreshadowing of a fall from grace for Alyssa, and that could look like a couple of different things. But I do agree that I think it's very likely that her active trafficking like this will end, but she will always be left with the fallout of that. And like you
Mhm.
said, the hope is that she can turn it into something better. But like we've said before, like she will never be that girl from middle school again, right? Like
Right.
that whole part of her is dead, has been killed off, is like 16 feet under.
Right. the most I allow myself to hope for is that, she can find a fulfilling career out of it. Maybe it's something that makes her feel a little better about the things she's endured. It's not going to nullify anything, but, maybe at least in the end she gets something kind of good out of it. Do I think that in this situation she would ever make peace with herself and come out of the closet? Possibly not. Like, she's got so much self-loathing,
Yeah.
right? Um, I like the idea of this being in a scenario where, like Elle said, she probably reconciles with Meg, because otherwise I don't know what would keep her going, you know? Um, because like it's such a bleak life.
Right, and Leo said something I know we've mused on before was the kind of concept of Alyssa eventually coming out of this as, like, the
This
opposite of Yui and preventing things from happening to other girls and,
this is
not wanting to cause any more pain.
I really love the vision of her being a mentor towards other girls in the industry.
Mhm.
Like, it feels so important to me because, right, like that subversion of Yui, the whole I don't want anybody else to go through this, understanding how she fell into this and knowing that, the next girl after her has fallen into this as well. Like, I think it's such an integral part of her staying in the industry is as a protective force. Like, yes, she gets to do this career that she actually, is good at, that makes her happy, the thing that makes her feel like she's actually creating and not just out here, performing someone else's work, at the same time as trying to be a protective force to other girls in the industry, especially the young ones. Like, I think
Yes.
the thing with Alyssa is, she's not Shanae, right? And I'm not saying this in like a derogatory way. It's just like she's not as good at being this take action girl who knows what to do. But I think maybe by trying to protect other girls, she could try to learn to be, or at the very least, she could be somebody who listens, somebody who these girls can go
And
to talk to. Maybe she can't stop things from happening, but she can at least try to, like, warn them, and she can be somebody who they can oh no, I'm I'm choking up. Um she can be somebody who they can open up to, because that's something she never had, and that's something that's so important, because, like, if you still make the choice to go through this because you want, you know, you see benefits in this, like, okay, that's your choice, but, you need a support system. And, like, I love the idea of her wanting to be support system. Like, when I said I want her to be a mentor, I don't mean like in a, I'm a K-pop idol mentor. I mean it in a, she's looking out for these girls. She is here to protect the girls.
and with that kind of what you were saying and what Leo just said about, like, she's not Shanae, and Leo said, "But also she's not Yui," and some
So
people need to
real.
hear that. That she like, if we're thinking about this industry, you can't approach it like Shanae does. If we've got these girls in here, that kind of gung ho confrontation
Mhm.
isn't making things better. But what can actually be useful is a more confident and like um tactful version of Alyssa could do that kind of navigating the dynamics of the industry in a way that protects these girls without making enemies of them.
Somebody who understands that sometimes you make choices that other people might not agree with, but, you're there for them. But you're also there to warn them about things, like, the offer sounds enticing and glitzy, but, like, are you sure you are prepared for it? Do you think you can really handle that? And obviously, like, one of the ideal end goals here is that Eugene's article can help bring some of this down. But also, unfortunately, when it comes to the idol industry and it comes to sponsorships, it's kind of a known secret, you know? It depends on, like, because here's the thing, right? It's your big corporations who are involved. How many politicians are involved in this? Or rather,
Mhm.
who's lining the pockets of politicians? Even if Eugene's article outs this sex trafficking ring, how much of it's actually going to be busted? How much of it's actually going to stop it? You know, like maybe it will temporarily stop it. Maybe stockholders of these various companies who are involved are going to get angry about things and they'll have to, like try to do a lot of PR, but that doesn't mean it goes away entirely.
Right, and that's like you can't barrel down this industry and these issues in the way that like Shanae and Noel are going to go up directly against Yui, in the way that Eugene's article goes directly up against the Hirahars and Kims.
Hence our bittersweet ending.
Yes, hence our British ending. But if you're someone in a position like Alyssa, in this way that we've hypothesized, you can engage in harm mitigation through strategic navigation of the industry.
Mhm.
And so like I think her specific, like a more developed version of her could, like her specific style could be useful there. And so we've now talked a bunch about Alyssa and where we think she's heading through the time skip. Thinking about some of our other characters, one of the questions that we've gotten is how do we think some of our characters outside of the main trio, and Alyssa's kind of a bridge here. Like we talked about Dieter and Meg as well. Because Alyssa, we consider her part of the main quartet, but then we've
Mhm.
also got the main trio. How do some of these side characters play out as we go past the time skip? Who gets added to the chessboard, if anyone? And just what does our cast of characters look like potentially going into this second part of the story?
So, I've never really felt that we're adding people to the chessboard. No, I mean I guess, yeah, it could be that some of our side characters are stepping up and entering. But, like, I guess I've always felt that our chessboard is pretty, like, established. And it's more of like, how are these pieces being taken out and moved? But
hmm
we
I
do know that we've got
I
some characters who are kind of being set up to play more important roles in the future, I think.
I think we're gonna get two things for sure. I think we're going to get new characters because Kimchi has actually
Mhm.
said that, and we also see it set up. We also see that we have the potential to get new characters, but we know for a fact we're getting new characters.
Which is going to be so weird, by the way.
Oh my gosh, yes.
We're, like, so far.
Yeah, like, I think there's gonna be a bit of a refreshment, like, similar to how I remember meeting Yu Jing for the first time and being like, "Who's this girl? Who is this person to my story that I know nothing about and is cryptic and I, like, haven't learned anything about?" But now she's such a staple, so I think we're gonna have, like, kind of some of those moments where it's like, "Who are you?" And then, like, later on, it's like, they feel very integrated.
Kiko's right. The college kids will be a good chunk of new characters. I don't know if
Yes,
I think
definitely.
they'll become main players on the chessboard. Um, I think obviously they're going to have a role in things. I guess my main thing is like, what makes you a chess player? You know? Like, I guess if you're making the conscious choice to assist Yu Jing in going against the Hiroharas, does that put you on the chessboard? I guess so. Um, because obviously I
I
think
think it depends. I
right,
think it depends on how active a role that you play, because we have people on the chessboard who never put themselves there
right.
and haven't really made what we would have considered intentional moves, but their actions actions have been so substantial, as opposed to someone like Dieter, for example, who we don't really see as being on the board.
Mhm.
Where like he has an impact in the story, he's making, he's doing things very intentionally, but they're not having that huge impact in the corporate politics.
Right, I guess that's the main thing.
Yeah, that's kind of the muddy, murky line of how we get a chessboard character. And I think, like you said, I don't feel like we're adding pieces so much as we're changing what our pieces represent. So for some
Right.
people that means changing from one role to another. For some people that might mean stepping into a role that has been left by
Mhm.
someone else. Um, but I
Maybe
don't feel like
changing
we're like,
colors.
yeah, maybe changing colors, but I don't feel like we're like throwing new pieces onto the board. Like I
Right.
feel like our pieces are on the board in some capacity. Like some of them we haven't quite met yet in their full capacity. And we know that people can change. We know that the pieces can change around. So I'm expecting to see some shifts, but I'm not expecting true additions.
Because listen, think about Songchul post university. He's still gonna be freaking
Mm-hmm.
annoying, but like Songchul a few years from now has the potential to, kind of get a little more corporate weight under him.
Mm-hmm.
And, he is going to university, probably in America. Maybe he was accepted to one. I mean, accepted quotes.
Yeah,
Um, he's going to have a lot of weight to throw around. Um, it'll be really interesting to see what happens with him.
absolutely.
We know Kosuke is probably going to end up eventually shifting sides. Um,
Yes.
how that will happen is to be determined. I mean, like obviously he's got feelings about his mummy right now, but it's like at what point will he be ready to consciously play for the other team?
Yes.
So yeah, I don't think new pieces, but right, we're going to see a lot of shifting, but we will see new characters.
We have people talking in the chat currently about Nolan Shanae's shifts, where like we've got Shanae as a pawn right now, but we have some foreshadowing that she is going to become a rook, and that she and Noel in that kind of 2021 return illustration are two rooks that push the white queen into a corner. And that's something that I very much see and vibe with. So like things like that, where we've got a lot of pawns on the board right now that are going to upgrade into different characters. We have
Hmm.
some side switches that might go on. We have some characters that are going to get taken out. Like I know we've said that um we've noticed that the Black Queen gets taken off of the board in the endgame illustration, and we expect that to be, Yujing drops her big bomb, and whether through her own volition or being taken
Hmm.
out, which I think will ultimately be the same thing. I think she's going to see that she can't stay in
Yeah,
the public eye after she drops that, and I think she is going to become a self-sacrifice. I hope that means that she just goes off of the grid,
one
but
hopes
uh, one
because
hopes.
Yui's going to be out for her.
Yes, she's going to have her self-sacrifice bomb moment that puts the black team in a good position to win, but then she's noping off that board.
Yes.
Um And so, like, we see some of that where, like, Yujing, I don't think will be on the board after her article drop. We see those upgrades from characters like Noel and Shanae, potentially Central. We see Kosuke potentially flipping sides. So we see a lot of that. And then as for what new characters can become pieces, like if they take on stuff that's lost, I think we might see additional Hiraharas come into play,
Oh yes.
as we've seen some sort of some foreshadowings for that. And I think we have a lot of the white team that we haven't met, that we've like seen our players on the board that we have not been privy to yet. So I think that we will see some of that. I feel like our black team roster is pretty fleshed out. Like I don't foresee terribly strong changes to it.
Yeah.
I think I see mostly just piece upgrades.
I think they've kind of kept their circle small.
Yes. For characters that we like, side characters that we think are going to become more important or gain more of a role in season 2, who do we who do we potentially foresee that with?
My gut reaction wants to posit that there's a chance Soshi could take on more of a role. I don't know what
I think
kind
he
of role,
will.
but his connection to both Kosuke and Null feels like there is a lot of room for him, especially because, much like
Yeah.
Shanae, he is in a position of a family who does not earn enough. And, like, obviously part of that has been Kosuke has been paying him to, spy on Null, and that has been providing him, a lot of monetary supplemental money for his family. Yeah, Kiko says Kosuke Soshi friendship era. I would like to see that. Um,
Absolutely.
I feel like he's
Yeah,
going to have a bigger role. And I feel like,
I think
the
so.
fact that Janae's making such a big deal about Soshi's betrayal just feels like it's hyping him up even more.
Yeah, I have always gotten the impression that, Soshi was set up as Kosuke's spy for a reason, right?
Hmm.
And we honestly haven't really seen a ton of use come from this. Like, we've seen our little moments, but we haven't seen anything really huge come from this relationship that he has established with Kosuke. But we see it framed as very important. And
Hmm.
we intrinsically see the importance of someone being connected in that way to Kosuke and Noel, even without the framing. We get all of this additional framework around it. So I very much think that he's going to play a bigger role in some way in season 2. I think that we've gotten little nuggets of exploring him, but I feel like we really have so much more to go there. So he is definitely one that I feel like will get a bigger role, as opposed to someone like Dieter, who we've kind of mused about what role he'll have at all, like where we can see it becoming bigger, but we can
Will
also
he
see,
even come back?
yeah, like we could also see him like kind of fully leaving. Like we could see his whole role in this story kind of being fulfilled in the teenage years. And again, that doesn't mean there's no room for him to come back, but his arc
Right.
is a lot more explored and resolved, where
You
could he become a bigger player? Yes, but he'd kind of have to consciously make the choice to, as
right.
opposed to someone like Soshi already set up for it and seemingly is going to whether he wants to or not.
Right. Juliet said Dieter cameo when everything is resolved. And yeah, I think it's more likely that we would see Dieter come back to visit. It's just it really raises the questions. Like we said, he's most likely going to go to college back home, because why would he go to college here when he clearly misses being back home, when he wants to be around his family again? Why would he take a job elsewhere and go through that
Yep.
whole process? I mean, because here's the other thing, right? His family is in the military. They've been stationed here for a few years now. They're going to be moving on soon. By the time we've had that time skip, his family's not going to be in the United States of Asia anymore. So
Yeah.
is he going to go where they are? Is he going to stay in Germany? I don't think there's a really good chance he's not going to come back here. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I very much think that Dieter's going to, go to school in Germany, and I think that's where he's gonna stay. I
Mhm.
think like people are saying like we'll see some cameos from Dieter. Like I don't think he's going to exit our narrative completely,
Right.
but I think a lot of his arc will have been told by this
Right.
point. And
And
the conclusion of his
it
arc
makes
will be
sense.
that he went home.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean their friendship ends. It just means, he's got his path. Whereas, like Soshi lives here.
Right. And I think that's something important to explore with Dieter, that like, even after all of this, his path is to be elsewhere. And again, that doesn't mean that his role in their lives completely disappears, as opposed to like something that we saw with like Brandon Nessa, where it became a very big point of falling out, where
Right.
like that connection still existed and they couldn't honor it in the way they needed to, and
Well,
it crashed and burned. For multiple reasons, not just distance. But with Dieter, his path is, he likely is going to be in Germany, and that's where he needs to be, and he can still be connected to people, especially with how many relationships he's lost in
Right.
his time all these different places. Getting to that point of he's established these really strong relationships and he finds a way to be able to keep them even with that separation. But like we said, like I think that's where his role culminates.
Mhm. I also think we will probably see Meg taking a bigger role just because she feels like she's been being
Yes.
built up a lot. Obviously, we've already seen her taking a bigger role in the Kim formal and, kind of taking on this awareness that, you know, beyond sexually assaulting Kosuke, um, she's really behaved like a really silly girl. And I'm saying silly derogatory here. Um, and she's trying to change that. She's trying to put herself on a different path. She's trying to take her school more seriously and distance herself from Yui and the Hiraharas in general. Um, so I think obviously we're going to see something of that, like the fact that she is deliberately put on the board even before well, I mean, I guess she was technically playing the game. But she thought she was playing for the Hirohara side this whole time. Um, she made a conscious effort, I mean, she made a conscious choice that night. And I think we're going to see more of that. Um, how do I think it'll play out? I'm not sure. Like right now, she's working on an engineering degree. So where is that going to take her in the story? Where is that going to put her? Like, who is she going to be in contact with? Will she and Eugene, continue to strike up this very unlikely type of friendship? Because, we're seeing the seeds of that. Obviously, Eugene is probably going to be using her a little bit. But I think she can get a lot out of it. So I don't think that that's necessarily going to ground to a halt or anything. Um, so, I think that will be a factor of it. But yes, Eugene uses everyone a little bit. Like if she's interacting with you, she's using you. Like that's her purpose. But I do think that
Doesn't mean that she gets, doesn't mean that she doesn't have anything else other than using you, but she's definitely using you, you know?
right. But I think obviously Meg will get a lot out of it. But where does it bring Meg in the story? I'm not sure. Obviously, she is like opposed to the Hiroharas, so we know that. Is she willing
Mhm.
to play the game a little more? That's to see. Can Eugene manipulate her enough to do it? Mm, but I do think that she will, play a bigger role.
Yeah. And in a similar vein of characters who are kind of connected to Yujing in some way that'll play a role, Man Lai,
Oh yes. Oh
I think
yes,
will be coming into
absolutely.
the story
She's
much more.
if anyone's stepping onto the board that isn't already there, she will be.
Yeah. I feel like she might already be there
I
as
think
kind
so
of a
too.
pawn that we've never noticed.
Because she is in black that night, so
Yeah, I think she's sitting in the back of the board as a black pawn, and I think she's gonna be stepping out onto the board in our second season.
pivoting back to Meg for a hot second, Juliet did bring up still waiting for Meg to give Kosuke the gift from Rand. That is a very
Mm.
important role, and I don't know when it's going to happen, but yes. Like maybe she'll finally remember to do it after, like the article drops and it's like, "Oh yeah," like that just sounds terrible. Um, you know,
Oh,
oh, whoopsie. At some point in time though, like that's
whoopsie.
going to be a very big deal. Potato says, "I wonder if she gives it after the maybe Rand death." That I could see. Um,
Ooh. And like you said, we know it's gonna be a big deal. It's one of those things that has been very clearly framed as a big deal, and like
yes.
we get the impression that the timing is going to be a big deal too.
The real question is, will Kosuke see the inscription or will he just be like, ooh, gift and toss, because like
Oh,
he's got feelings. Because that's the other thing, right? There's the timing of the reception and then there's the timing of seeing the inscription. They can happen at the same time.
yeah.
But if, he's
But they
in
could
that
also be separate.
despondence, right? Like if he's in this despondent, my father never loved me. I was never even his son. Everything in my life is horrible. Everything's in ruins. Is he even going to bother looking at it? Is it going to be one of those things where it's like, oh gee, look, it's yet another fancy gift from my father who just plies me with expensive gifts, like
Right. And
h-
then later on, something happens, and you notice the inscription, it changes your whole
exactly,
view.
right. And I feel like that's just like such a good possibility because it just gives us that double whammy of feels. And when he finally looks at it and oh no, don't do it. And finally, realizes that Rand always treated him as a son, even if he couldn't demonstrate it in the way that he wanted to.
Yeah. I will say, first pod back in the year, and we have both ended up on the brink of tears about Calissa specifically.
Listen, we're not the number one and number two Calissa crier for no reason, okay?
I don't think we've said this to like in front of the community. I think we said this like in the DMs, but I remember that one time when you were talking about how it's so funny how a lot of the times I would end up being the first person to respond to new members, and it was so funny the concept being like number two, Colissa Crier, who's number one, and then Ashley just comes barreling in with the number one Colissa Crier. I was like, oh, it's number one.
Surprise! Listen, they get me, okay? They get to me. And
It's a
like
tragedy.
it is, and it's like it's knowing that Kosuke is never going to have that reconciliation with his father. He's going to make peace with a ghost. We've repeated this line so many times. It's the fact that Kosuke has spent all of his life trying to chase this love that he feels like he's never tasted. And then he's going to have this bomb dropped on him that he's not even this man's son, and he's going to internalize it in all the worst ways and feel like, oh, that's why he never loved me, that's why he never treated me the way that he treats Noel, even though obviously the way he treats Noel is not a way Kosuke wants to be treated. But he's going to internalize this in all the worst ways, and there's like we're so confident he's never going to have that reconciliation. He's never going to sit down and have a talk with his father in which his father tells him with his voice out loud that he loves him and he has always loved him and that he has done his best. And it hurts because it's it's painful, it is tragic, it's tragedy. And he's probably going to look at that stupid watch inscription after Rand's been dead and he's believed that he never meant anything to this man, and he's finally going to realize that, oh, he did love me. And maybe he'll finally realize that like why Rand could never show him love. Maybe he'll finally look at all of those memories because he's already looking at Yui differently. He's already seeing it, and maybe he'll finally be able to understand that his father tried in his own ways and he couldn't. And like it
And I know we've talked about like that ultimately being really important for his self-concept and his ability to build his own identity independent of Rand, where like he doesn't get that moment with Rand himself. He has to make peace with that ghost. He has to make peace within himself for himself and become his own person all on his own.
but it still
But
makes me
God, it makes me
sad.
so sad.
Ugh. Like just
Welcome to the chat crying. I'm sorry, but we're so back.
like
I hope you all missed us.
and it's the same for Noel too, because he's always believed that Rand has never loved him and that he's just a piece of trash who has inconvenienced him, when like every time that Rand has ever gotten so angry is because he cares so damn much and he's trying to keep him out of trouble and he's doing everything he can to keep him under Yui's radar. And right, like, you know, like you said, like we talk about a lot, like they need to be able to process their feelings about Rand independently of Rand's feelings. Kosuke especially needs to be able to develop his identity and his sense of self without this reinforcement from Rand that he relied on. But it just hurts that like all three of them love so much and it's never reached each other. You know, even, you know, like again, like the way that Noel loved Kosuke so much and Kosuke threw it away. And I got
It
feelings, guys. I got feelings. Like
it hurts so much. I'm like, like we've got all these questions coming into the mindset of like what is ultimately all these questions about what does the big time skip look like?
it looks like
And then
sad.
it looks like tragedy.
It looks like people being spread apart and some relationships being halted, you know, while other relationships get to, you know, remain steady. Other relationships are just spiraling.
Are there are there any other side characters that we think are going to play a bigger role or any other like big relationship changes that we see?
I don't think so. I think, you know, Maya and Rika will remain where they are. I think, you know, Shanae's going to maintain her friendship with them. um Minya will be around more. So I guess there is that. We'll see a lot more of like what we've been seeing now. Shinhei will definitely come
Oh yeah.
out of the walls, literally.
Yes.
Um I just like full disclosure, I am not the person to talk about Shinhei. I I still haven't fully come to grips with what I think about her, and I think we've talked about this before on the pod. Like I think she has that possessive claim over Shanae, and possibly to a dangerous degree, because we know that that relationship will be more difficult to repair than even the brothers. We know that Noel and Shanae will be hostile with each other, which, you know, begs a lot of questions like, besides the stalking, what else is Shinhei doing? Because
Yeah.
there's got to
I,
be
I
more.
think
If
I
Noel,
think we
or go on.
I think that we understand decently well like her really really broad motivations and feelings and dynamics with the characters, but I think we both draw a really big blank on, like you said, what exactly she's going to be doing,
Hmm.
what exactly that will mean for the other characters, like how exactly she's going to come out of this woodwork. And we've talked before about how that's ultimately why we don't have an episode on Shinhei, especially when we did all these character deep dives into basically everyone else in the cast. And, we
Yes.
did our episode kind of talking about family, and she was featured there a lot, but we don't have a solo deep dive into Shinhei because we truly don't really know. Like, that's a variety of theorizing that, like I said, like, we have her kind of overall really broad sense of character, which is in line with a lot of how we talk about and conceptualize the comic. But that kind of really plot thready type theorizing isn't something that either of us really excel at, and I
Hmm.
feel like that's where Shinhei's at. Like her story is kind of at the point that a lot of our characters are at the beginning, where
Hmm.
like we're sowing the seeds for what their plot's going to be. And that's theorizing that was very much done by people who are not us, that neither of us really caught onto in real time, I feel like.
Right.
um like real time being early time, we're talking about I Love You here. um but that's where I feel like Shinhei is, and so I feel like we draw a much bigger blank there.
Now, Beck does say, and this is something that I know we've talked about before, and I do believe in. Like, will Shanae be stealing Shanae's identity, but considering it borrowing? Yes, I do emphatically
I think
believe
so.
this. There is 3000% a reason Shanae look so similar to each other.
Yeah.
And
Especially considering
Fast
that it's
Pass,
implied they're only half siblings.
yes. Also, Fast Pass spoilers. Um, we're seeing that with Kosuke and Shinhei in the sense that him confusing her for somebody he knows, there's going to be a lot of potential for her being able to, you know, masquerade as Shanae. Um, I don't think she's going to see it as stealing her identity. One of the things that I do feel about Shinhei is, and probably the reason that she'll have that hostile relationship with Null is, I think we get the sense that Shinhei feels a lot like Yui, that there's a lot of things in Shanae's life that are making things worse. And that, if they were changed, they could be better. If these people weren't involved in her life, these things wouldn't have happened, etc., etc., right? Um,
Mhm.
and obviously Null is going to be one of those. Um, so I feel like it might be one of those situations where, because like she definitely gives us these like possessive, almost yandere vibes when we like think about it, right?
Absolutely.
Like she's literally breaking into Shanae's house and just following her and keeping tabs on her and keeping tabs on the people in her life. Like it's really involved. um so I think, she's got this there's a sense of control to it. There's a sense of, it is my job to look after my sister and protect her because the people around her aren't doing a good enough job of it. So if that means having to play Shanae to, manipulate situations, to mess with people,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying mess with people in like a cat and mouse way, I mean like,
Yeah.
to kind of, like change things, I think she would. And that could also be why
So
Null and she will have this hostile relationship, because, who would be able to tell the difference between Shanae and Shinhei? Who is very aware of like certain distinguishing marks on Shanae? Um,
ooh, that's a good setup for that. And also, who is potentially as outraged as Shanae when people step on her autonomy?
exactly. And I
Who
do
is it?
think
Don't leave us in suspense.
Juliet. Um, and I
Juliet in the
think
chat said, "Who is it? Don't leave us in suspense."
and I think that this would probably be everyone. Okay, for everybody who's listening and needs to know, it's Kosuke. No, obviously not. Um, it that would be the thing that would destroy the relationship, right? Like that would be the thing that would make it so irreparable that like even Kosuke and Noel have a better chance of repairing the relationship, because right, like it's stepping on her autonomy, it's pretending to be her, it's manipulating the people in her life.
It's
um
quite possibly the worse outcomes for her.
right. And it's just, like we get this sense that Shinhei is very controlling and possessive. Like in her mind, she thinks she's doing what's best. This is her only way of taking care of Shanae. This is her only way of being involved in her life. Instead of, I don't know, being a normal person and talking to her and showing up at the party that they invited her to. Um, Like, I say all this, but, like, Shinhei is definitely a feral cat. She is not it's going to take a lot for her to be comfortable in those kinds of situations. But also, perhaps manipulating and stalking and impersonating people is not the way to go. But I do very much think that's going to be a thing. There is no reason that they would look this identical. And we would not have this, once again, fast pass spoiler moment with Kosuke, like mistaking
Oh
her
yeah.
for Shanae if that's not building up to this. Um, you think
Yeah, and I
Shinhei will
think
do her damnedest to cause a rift in Minhyuk and Shanae's relationship, maybe out of jealousy or protection?
I I feel like she might not be so much like consciously being like, I'm going to separate my sister from these people, as much as she will be like just naturally doing things that she thinks are in Sinead's best interest that like will cause strain there, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like, especially if people realize that it's Shinhei and not Shanae. Like, I think her possessiveness ends up with her having those kind of like, I am the only person who can have this kind of relationship with Shanae. Like, she is
Mhm.
my sister, I'm entitled to her. And I think if she is impersonating Shanae and also like very, very strongly making moves in Shanae's life, that will naturally become a point of conflict. Similar to how like with and Leo said, I think it would be more like Shanae not being fine with Minhyuk or trying to step in between or acting for her like she did before. So in a roundabout way, but it's also just this is Minhyuk. But I was gonna say it reminds me of Minhyuk and Shinhei's confrontation, where Shinhai wasn't doing anything to specifically antagonize him and create a rift in that relationship, but just through the natural sequence of events, from the specific way that Shinhei approaches and interacts with Shinhei, it creates scenarios that drive a rift between
Mhm.
Shanae and her. So I think we're going to see things like that, where she is creating scenarios specifically for the purpose of getting what she wants out of her relationship with Shanae, that then ultimately, as a kind of direct side effect, put strain on Shanae's relationships.
Right. Like, I think we will probably see Shanae try to have a relationship with her at some point, but if and as Shinhei's meddling starts to become a thing and Shanae starts to become aware of it, yeah, we'll see strain coming from all over. Because, then we,
Yeah.
we do have those conflicts where it's like, Minhyuk causing his form of conflict, but then it's kind of like, is it really misplaced if Shinhei is, I don't know, impersonating you, Um,
Yes.
it makes
Yeah.
things a little more complicated for Shanae because you're at this point where it's like it's no longer somebody's trying to take care of things for you. It's at this point of this is a dangerous person involved in your life, and we're trying to make you see. They're definitely doomed by the narrative. Like straight up.
Oh,
This is
absolutely. And
like
I think Kimchi basically like Kimchi's pretty much said that. She's always said that the Shin sisters relationship will be the hardest to repair out of any, like harder than the brothers is specifically what she says. And
more
you
so
know,
than the Cho sisters, they are doomed by the
yeah,
narrative.
absolutely. And everything that we've seen about them is this kind of conflict, this pair of siblings who were like are just never able to actually be sisters. And so with that, all of that imagery combined with knowing that Kimchi views them as even harder to repair than the brothers, and that we know that there's going to be all these points of conflict and animosity, it just feels very, very doomed. And we've talked about that a little bit in our like family episode, where the Shin sisters are an exploration of just because your blood
Mhm.
doesn't your sisters, as compared to something like Nolsuke, where they're not blood related, but they will likely become brothers, and they have been brothers to each other for so much of their life. they've been put in that position. Whereas the Shin sisters, they're biologically related, but they have no functional relationship, and it's only getting worse from here.
Right. Potato says, I wonder if in her want to protect Shanae, she seeks to isolate her because then there would be less of a reason for Shanae to leave her in her mind. I feel like yes. Like I feel like
Yeah, I
partly we're just playing into the kind of, like stereotypes of somebody who is kind of controlling and stalkerish, but I think that's kind of fair because, this is the basis of
yeah,
what we know of her. And, like somebody who is controlling and has stalker behavior does kind of want that, especially when we go back to this whole mentality that she probably feels like she needs to protect her sister, that other people are failing her. She herself probably feels like she was failed by her own mother, that it's her job as the older sister to swoop in and quote, quote, save Shanae. That, yes, she's got to isolate her from the people who are holding her back or harming her. Um,
absolutely. And Hi 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 just said, "The sisterly relationship being forever fractured makes me so sad. It's likely that Shinhei has absolutely no one else to care
mhm.
about, so she tries to hold on to the one connection she has, but she's holding on to a connection that doesn't exist like she wishes it did." And that's really the crux of how I view this relationship and why it's so doomed to fall apart. And also, like, that kind of, if she'll isolate Shanae to protect her, where we see, like you said, these kind of stereotypical yandere presentations in Shinhei of the, like, what happens when you cling so hard to a relationship that doesn't exist because you have nothing else, and you believe that the two of you are the only thing that each other needs. Where again, like, I don't think that she's necessarily going to be being like, let me make this power play to separate from who she cares about. Where, like,
Mhm.
she even tells Minhyuk that, she sees that if she wants to be with Shanae, she has to be on Minhyuk's good side. But I think she's just going to do so many things that are so possessive of Shanae and so kind of against Shanae's best interest, and that create so much conflict that it's going to naturally drive that wedge, and that she is not going to see any problem with driving that wedge because in her mind she is what's best for Shanae.
Right. And like in a way she is clinging, you said like to a relationship that doesn't exist, but also I think to a version of Shanae that doesn't quite exist. Um,
Yes.
like she's come to know Shanae through, very close observation of her, but she's not the person interacting with her. And I think that's a really big defining part of actually knowing a person. Eh,
Yes.
and that's such a big deal because
She
like
again.
obviously she's got a lot of nostalgia that's tethering her, but again it kind of goes back to um and somebody pasted this from T's Shinhei Bible, giant book, Shin Sisters compiled document, little book, Shin Sisters compiled document, if Shinhei could say hi to Shinae. Like if Shinhei was able to start over her relationship with Shanae, if she was able to let go of that past relationship and, meet Shanae anew and get to know her as the person she is now, it would bypass all of this. But like you said, the problem is she's so attached to this relationship that doesn't exist. She's attached to this person, in her memory. And this, right, like it is very much connected to the fact that she doesn't have anybody else, to the fact that she was separated from this person and that she has probably held on to this her entire life, and they've clearly manifested in this very unhealthy way. And now that she has allegedly lost her mother in whatever way that this means, it's there's a desperation there, right? Like this is the last
Yeah,
remaining connection she has, and she feels like she must hold on to it. She has to hold on to it. And obviously that desperation
absolutely.
is going to end up driving her away. What did Kiko say?
Kiko said, I wonder if maybe Shinhye will grow vindictive to Shanae as she continues to reject Shinhye's attempts to reach out, so Shinhye gives up and decides to burn it all down. I'm curious about their mom because there's this ambiguously negative vibe attached to her from what we've learned, and Shanae being unwilling to reconnect could be Shinhye's final straw, and she decides to burn it all down.
I think there's a chance for it. I don't know if we would reach it. I do think we could reach vindictive points though, just
I,
because
I, I
I don't think it would
yeah,
happen because again, like I guess what I'm saying is like I can see it just because it fits this pattern we're talking about, you know? Kind of like,
yeah,
don't you see I'm
I,
doing this for you? I'm trying to help you. Um, but I don't think we'll really get
yeah,
to burn it all down just
yeah.
because that
I think.
she's more desperate to cling to it, you know?
Yeah, I think Shinhye could absolutely get to that point, and I
Mhm.
think we could even potentially see her approach that or even flip to that. But I don't think we're going to see her actually be able to do anything in that regard because I think there's going to be too many things blocking it.
Right.
Whether that's just we don't get to that version of Shinhye because there's too many things blocking her from getting there, or if that's we get to that version but there's too many things blocking her from acting that. I don't
Mhm.
think we'll actually see it for one of those reasons.
Shanae is mercifully surrounded by people who, care deeply about her, which is probably, her saving grace.
Yes. Is there anything further that we want to say on either of these topics, either Shinhai or kind of thoughts on the time skip?
I feel like we've covered the time skip to the best of our abilities right now.
I think we have. Where are all the characters on the cat to dog meter?
This is a question from the chat.
This isn't even the question we're supposed to be at. This is my question now. Okay, so for everyone listening, we've had a slight derailment in the chat. Um, we
This is
we
what
got
happens when we have a live audience, and we love it.
yeah, we got asked about where was it? Where are all of the characters on the cat to dog meter? So we've started talking about no.
Listen, Null looks like a cat, but he's definitely a dog.
Oh yeah.
Well, I say that, but Youngie is a dog, Null is a cat.
I think both of them are truly a dog, but I think they're a very specific kind of dog. I think both of them are a dog, but I think they're a very specific type of dog. Like a sad golden retriever. Um
Golden
okay.
Retriever boyfriend.
Yes. Yes, you get me,
See,
EJ. Like
I
Noel is
it's
a
a
dog, but
dog-shaped
only when he gets
cat.
older.
I
It's
think it
like he's
just
a
needs to
very
be known that I'm extremely a cat person.
oh, we both are. But yeah, but I feel like he's a very specific breed of dog, but I don't know that I could answer what one because I don't know dog breeds well enough. Like there's a vision of it in my head.
Describe it.
I'm
Describe
not
it.
envisioning the appearance of the dog. I'm envisioning the temperament of
Oh,
the dog.
describe it. Alyssa is 100% a cat.
Such a guy.
Kosuke is
You
the
guys are all
wettest
very
cat. It is
correct.
true.
Kosuke is what he said. So in terms of what temperament of dog he is, it's that kind of dog where like if the dog is kind of in the right mood or with the right people, it can present very golden retriever. But it can also it also has traits of like almost like a work dog where like that kind of dog who like can be very serious and like is still like ultimately like very loyal and still like has that dog energy and personality, but can turn on that like serious mode.
You're right. I don't know what dog breed that would be.
Yeah, I have no idea what dog breed that
I
is.
don't.
But that's what I'm envisioning. Oh,
Ooh,
Seabrad said an
sheepdog.
Akita or Australian sheepdog is what you're describing to me. I feel like Kimchi has mentioned an Australian sheepdog at some point.
But I can also see an Akita, and doesn't Kimchi have like she's got the
Yes,
Shibas, but
she
doesn't she
does.
also have an
This
Akita?
actually this
Like
actually makes a lot of sense.
Akitas, like Shibas, have personality. But yeah, like
Yeah.
when you started talking about guard dogs, the sheepdog
Yes.
feels like it.
Yes, where like
But
he's not like aggressive guard dog, but he is at some point like a working. Well, at one point, Kimchi said Noel was like an Irish wolfhound. Yeah, see, all of these things are kind of what I'm envisioning. Where like it's not that Youngie is a dog and Noel is a cat; it's that Youngie is only the golden retriever side of a dog, and
mm-hmm.
then Noel exhibits more of those kind of like work dog, guard dog characteristics.
But Kosuke is 100% a cat. He is the
This was
wettest cat,
absolutely
but
a
he
wolf
is a
cat.
cat. He is also like a Persian. I wish he could be a rag doll, but there's nothing cuddly about that man, unfortunately. But he definitely is a long-haired cat. And
Yes, a
I fear he
long-haired,
is not
extremely
a
wet,
Maine Coon.
probably cat.
Yeah, he's just soaking, sopping wet. Like, he's the most pathetic looking wet cat in the world. And I carry him in my pocket. I love it. I love him. Alyssa, also a cat. Um,
Very much cat. And she's more like she's not so much a wet cat. She is more so like she's an
maybe she
elegant
got in the
cat, but
garbage a little bit.
but
Say what?
she's like a bit more of like a like poise cat, but the kind of cat
Yes.
where like not so much that it's that she presents as a scaredy cat, but she like acts like yeah, like that kind of like little bit of skittish, like little bit of distance, like not able to fully trust
She's
kind of
like my cat. If there's strangers at the house, she will be in the room because she's not going to act like she's a coward. But she
Mhm.
will not let those people touch her. She will not let them
Yes,
get close.
exactly.
Unless
Yes,
they have treebies. If they want to feed her a treebie, she will take it from them. And well, we
yes,
do know Alyssa, if you got a favor for her, unfortunately, our girl will take it. So she's definitely a cat.
absolutely. Yes.
Shanae feels.
I
I'm torn because I think
I
she could be either.
I think she's a traumatized dog.
Yeah, yeah, I think. Because it's like she has a willingness and an affinity for people. And I'm not
Mhm.
saying that cats don't, because that's not what we're trying to get at, but I guess so far it looks like that. Um, but it's just there's something about that affinity towards people that feels very doggy to me,
Yes.
and she has a lot of loyalty to people we've seen, and like it's not towards like just one person. Like, cats are seen more as like they have loyalty to specific people. Whereas
Mhm.
like, dogs tend we think of dogs as having like bonds with more than just like a specific person. Um but like right, like you said, that traumatized dog where it's like wanting to trust but being afraid to trust.
Mhm.
I can see that for her. She's
And we
probably some kind
also
of mutt. We don't know
oh
what breed
definitely.
she is, but she's still really cute and scrappy. And you see her in the shelter and you see the slight fear in her eye, and you're like, that's the one. I need her. I need her so bad.
Absolutely. And we also see in her behavior that like she is ultimately that kind of like gung ho like really like in some ways like
Protective dog.
yeah, like protective kind of, sometimes overactive, like
Oh,
the
yes.
dog. Like she goes straight into
Yes.
things and with that very dog energy. So it's like when she's not caught up in the traumatic experiences that she's had and that fear, she acts very dog. And she says it herself that like a lot of her more standoffish behavior is very much a facade, as opposed to characters like Coach
Mhm.
and Alyssa, where that is part of genuinely who they are. And a lot of their arc is about like trying to hide that or trying to make it feel acceptable to be that way. Whereas with Shanae,
Mhm.
she's always been more so of that dog energy, and then it, as far as she saw, it didn't get her anywhere good. And so she's like, I need to put this away. I can't trust anyone, even though she truly so very much desires to get back to a place where she can be like that. Like, she's afraid of it, but she wants to be able to be like that.
And now
And
that
so,
she's found the right people, she's able to let that out a little more.
yeah, like the more that we see Shanae kind of be her authentic self, the more of the dog we see come out of her.
On the other hand, I think Dieter is a cat in the sense that he's probably like your friendly, cuddly lap cat.
Yes, I agree.
Like I
I think
he's
Peter's kind of a closet cat.
yes, like we've got like our standoffish finicky cats right now, but Dieter he is your cuddle cat. He is the cat who, you know, maybe he is a little reserved towards people, but like he's got his favorites, right? And these are the ones that he loves, and it's like the moment you sit down, he's right there. He's in your face. He
Mhm.
wants to be around the people he likes.
Totally. And that's
Like,
also part
yeah.
of like,
I'm not saying he's clingy, but I'm just saying like he's probably like, the cat who just likes to be around its favorite people.
yeah. And that's also, we see that in the kind of like quiet, strong, supportive energy he has, where it's like you said, it's very much that like when you've got your cat sitting beside you or sitting on your lap, like that kind of very stable, quiet, strong presence, as opposed to more of a dog energy.
Hmm. And too, like how Shanae even talks about, like she turns to Dieter when she needs help, when she needs a calming presence. And like that's kind of what cat people do. It's like, I've had a bad, stressful day. I need my cat, you know?
Yeah.
Um, it's he is such a cat in that sense. Um,
Mhm.
so she's definitely a dog though. He's
Absolutely.
he's 300% dog.
And that's
He's
like that's their bond that they've got going on.
yeah, they're the cat dog bond. Oh, I
Yeah,
love
that's what
it.
these two are. And then Noel is this like, like that like kind of guard work dog, sometimes golden retriever that's like sometimes in the mix between that cat dog pair, like
Feral.
sometimes bridging it. Just a little feral. So she is.
Okay, but you're right. So she is a bit of a feral dog. It's true.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. Let me think
Mhm.
about this because
You know what
Maya,
I
she could also give cat because listen, cats can attack for people they love. So I'm
you
really
know what
torn on this one.
I think?
Hmm.
Maya's a little dog.
Yes, she's a yippy dog.
Yes.
Zip. Beep, 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 beep. Yeah, she's on your ankles. She's a Jack Russell Terrier. You know, you can't do this to me, Yoon. You cannot do this to me. I mean,
One of our
Dieter would be a
members
capybara.
Yeah, one of our members asked, does any character fit to be capybara?
It would be Dieter. He would indeed be a
I think
capybara.
so. If anyone's a capybara, I think it's Dieter. Um, yeah, and then I know earlier in the chat I saw Yujing pass by, and there was some discussion as to whether she is a cat because she gives cat energy, or if she's a dog because she's like kind of sniffing out the clues. I
Ooh.
I think she is cat, but I think she's a very like she's a cat with a purpose, you know? Like she's one of those
Yeah.
cats like she's a huntress cat.
She's I was gonna say, is she like a street cat?
Yeah. Or like one of those like really kind of fiercely independent cats who like they know everything about their territory.
Right. Yeah, I can see it. She feels very cat to me. Like, I get the dog thing, and I do love the whole like sniffing things out, like very clever. But yeah, she just feels very cat, especially like she has lots of sources. She has a way of like gaining access to things. And listen, cats, they can get in anything, everywhere. Like, they can crawl into
Yeah.
those small spaces.
And that's what
She's,
she's doing.
yeah.
Like she's not so much like a drug sniffing dog where like going around and just like pulling out and she's like, there's something there, someone go investigate it. Like she herself, like she's not doing those wide sweeps. She's kind of crawling into the nooks and crannies and she's pulling the thing out and she is like her curiosity is learning what it is for herself, which I feel like is very cat. Um
Mhm.
someone Leo said she's like that black cat that's known for bad luck, but she's also like the Egyptian black cat. And Brad said she's like a cat who finds the allergic person immediately and investigates and melts. Ooh,
I
Leo
also
said from the
love how
Hirahara.
Carmi.
Oh, keep going.
Oh,
Yeah,
keep going.
I
I
was
was
gonna
just
say
gonna say, I love how Carmi is not letting the Eugene go.
no. That was good. We've had a lot of fun in the chat today. Leo also said from the Hirahara's and Kim's point of view, she's a black cat who brings them bad luck. That's actually I do like that with you the Yujing as a black cat, where like to some she is bad luck and to some she is like very good luck.
Especially because it kind of ties into the whole thing with Noel and like his good luck in Irish folklore and tradition and bad luck in Korean beliefs
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. It just and since they're kind of working together, it goes really nicely.
Yes, Hansuke.
Oh, hold on, because like my gut reaction is dog, of course, very loyal, very playful, very goofy, but also could he be a rag doll? Absolutely. But he feels dog. I just,
I
like I can see the rag doll, right? Like picture, like I think he's a dog, but just picture this with me, right? Kosuke, Persian, purebred, pedigree. He's very finicky. He's, very, like grooms himself immaculately, takes care of himself so well. Hansuke, ragdoll, just rolling around everywhere. Like always, he's like at Kosuke's Persian fluffy feet and just rolling around, exposing his floofy, fluffy belly with his floofy, fluffy tail everywhere. And Kosuke just giving him the most disdainful look that a Persian can
yes,
give. And listen, a Persian can
absolutely.
give a super judgmental, disdainful expression.
Oh,
But
100%.
I do feel he is a dog.
Yes. Kiko said
I
Hansuke's
mean,
a ferret.
ragdolls do have, that loyalty to like their favorite people, but it's just dog. He's got
Yeah,
the
he's
dog
totally,
energy.
he's
Yeah,
absolutely
he's a
the dog.
dog.
He is the dog to Kosuke and Yujing's cats.
True. Yeah. That, like there's always got to be the one. So yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm. And
Shinhei
then,
is a cat. Like you have to be to
absolutely.
talk around the way she does. There's no question
Yeah.
about it.
Shinhei she is the street cat. She's the
She's a
alley
true
cat.
street cat. And to be fair, like how many times have I literally described her as, a street cat?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Whereas,
so much
like,
of the way she bites back is a scared street cat.
absolutely. Whereas, like, Yujing's cat, like, she probably is a pampered black cat, but she's in charge. You know, the house is her house. The
Right.
territory knows everything about it. She's going to come and go as she pleases. Whereas
She's
Shinhei
an indoor
is,
outdoor cat.
yes. Whereas Shinhei is like, she is a true outdoor street cat. She is feral. She, like you said, she bites back in that very street catty way. She knows what's going on because she's living a street, you know?
Right. Yeah, she's completely feral. Like, she's not a stray, she is feral.
Yes. And then we
Minhyuk is
talked about
definitely a dog, yes.
Yes, Minhyuk is absolutely a dog. Especially that like his middle school era where it's just constantly the like we've seen him
Involved
in
with
that like
everyone, bouncing from group to group. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and he's still got,
Yeah, Minhyuk being the big dog to Maya's small yippy dog.
oh
I love
yes.
it.
Absolutely. That's totally what it is. I feel like Minhyuk like
Songchul like a little chihuahua. Oh, you're
no,
right
honestly,
though.
I think you're right. Like, I don't
He's
think
got
Songchul's
little
actually
dog
a cat.
energy. His
Yeah,
bark
he's
is worse than his
honestly.
bite.
I think he genuinely. People are saying like tiny yappy dogs and Chihuahua. Like that's what he is. He is absolutely that.
No, because
Like he's not like he's smaller than a cat, and he's one of those dogs that people are like
mm-hmm.
that's basically a cat. But no, he's a dog. He's a tiny yappy dog, not a yippy dog, a yappy dog.
EJ specifically said, I know Songchul could be a cat, but I picture him in one of those tiny yappy dogs people carry in a purse. And yeah, like he's pampered, he's spoiled. Like he has people doting on him and waiting on him. And
And
like
that's
you said,
why
like he's useless. His bark is worse than his bite. He acts tough, but he can't actually follow through. He's smaller than a cat. Like everyone can wail on him really easily, which is why he relies on his family to take care of him for everything. Nev is going to be so upset about this. I'm so sorry, Bombi, that we did this to Chihuahuas, but
he's a
unfortunately,
Chihuahua.
it is him. He is.
I might edit some of these gifs into the YouTube video when it goes up. But
Oh God, yes.
For the YouTube crew, and especially the listening only crew, the chat is sending multiple gifs of like really like
There's
rich,
one
like
really
disgusting
pathetic
at the
dog.
world standoffish. Yeah, like this, like the rich family Chihuahua gifs in the chat are going real hard Songchill energy right now.
It's delightful. Okay.
And then
I think.
we've got people. Oh, keep going.
Oh,
Sorry.
if we want to keep going, we can. I was just going to say, I think we've covered a lot of these. Do we want to
We
get back to other
we
questions?
had a couple that we didn't get to.
Jeez.
Oh, I'm gonna have to include that too. The ones that we haven't gotten to yet are we haven't done Jace, we haven't done Rand or Yui, we haven't done Meg. All of whom I
Oh,
think are
yeah, we
pretty
gotta
obvious.
hit them.
Let's do them.
We gotta hit them. You're
Yeah,
right. You're right.
yeah. We know them, but we gotta hit them.
Rand is difficult.
I think Rand, again, one of those dogs with kind of the serious capacity. He's not the same type of dog as Noel, but it's in that similar vein. For him, I imagine more of the like guard doggy type than the sheep doggy type. Like I'm seeing one of those like darker kind of pattern dogs.
Carmi, this is your moment.
Can you tell me what
Doberman.
kind of dog I'm thinking of?
Oh, but
Also,
I could see a Doberman.
yeah, I think Doberman is kind of what I've got in my head.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. So we've got
Yes.
Rand as a Doberman.
Yes.
Jace, people are seeing as a cat, which, you know
I
what?
think.
I. Go on.
No, you talk. You talk.
I was gonna say, I can see the vision. Jace
Yeah.
could be one of those cats who, he's got his person. His person was Rand, and he was taken away from Rand, and he got a new owner. And over time, Kosuke became, I mean, I say over time, but I feel like even from the get go, Jace was very much somebody who took after or took to looking after Kosuke,
Mm-hmm.
especially he was so young. Um, and like it feels like only now that he's starting to see that things aren't what he thinks, but he clearly cares a lot about Kosuke, so I can definitely see him as that kind of cat who has their person, and Kosuke is his person, and he, sticks with him. I also agree that yes, Yui is very much a cat. She is, uh,
Can I
she
can I
could be a sphinx. Hmm?
can I speak on Jace a little bit first?
Yes, yes.
Before we pivot to you. I agree with what you said, and I feel like he's like one of those cats that presents as very like well adjusted and comfortable,
Yes.
And
Yeah.
honestly, like that
He's
picture
good
that
with
someone sent of
people.
a cat that looks like Jace, like that is very much kind of how I feel about him. And
Yeah.
it reminds me a little bit of like when Beebs, my cat, is calm around interacting with other people, as opposed to when she's like bouncing off the walls and interacting with other people. Um, but like that kind of cat where it's like you said, they've got their person that they're really loyal to and like they're looking after, they take care of. They've always got that person, but they're not like an Alyssa cat where they're kind of like skittish. They're not like a Kosuke cat where they're
Right.
sopping wet. They're not like a Yujing or Yui cat where they're really like, or a Shinhei cat where they're really like um that like very like independent kind of focused, sometimes vindictive cat. Like he's a
Right.
very
They like people.
chill cat. Yes.
Right. He's got his person, but he's good with other people. It's just he has a favorite person.
Yes. Okay, now we can move. Do we want to go straight to you,
So,
or do we want to touch Meg first?
yeah, do Yui because people are talking and I have thoughts here, right?
Okay,
Okay. So,
go to
here's
Yui.
the thing with cats, right? Like, there is no cat that is universally mean or horrible. However, there are certain breeds that tend to have a lot more pent up energy that they have to release. Otherwise, they can present as mean, right? Sphinxes are, in fact, some of these cats. I've heard Bengals can be this way. I know sometimes Siamese can be that way, but Siamese are a little on the yowly side, and that's not Yui. Um, Bengals are a
And
little too. Oh, go on.
with Yui, I don't necessarily feel like she's dependent on a specific breed of cat. And also cat breeds
Right,
honestly don't tend to have a strong tracked personality. They have
right,
energy, like talkativity, but not so much personality.
exactly.
But similar to how Shanae is a traumatized dog, Yui, I feel like, is a traumatized cat.
Traumatized cat.
Where she
Yeah,
was like, she's got those same kind of like traits as a cat like Eugene, but she was like, she's one of the cats who you like you find them later
she
in their
was
life, and
abused.
yes, whatever happened to them when they were younger, like it is constantly claws out as an adult.
Yeah. I mean, like, I can see that Sphinx just because, like you said, those energy levels, but I do think you're right, especially because we got those parallels. We got to keep our parallels. And again, when you have cats who've been abused, you do end up with, it's very much like, Yui is the way she is because of the kinds of abuse and trauma that she has endured in her life. Likewise, a cat who is mean is typically, like if they're truly mean, it's because of how they were raised, the things that they were put through. Right.
It's like,
Like you said, a cat who has lost trust in absolutely everyone.
right, we're like, and a lot of the other kind of traumatized varieties of cat dogs that we've talked about in this are like more of the neglected varieties, where like some of their like
Hmm.
a need of theirs wasn't met. Other than Noel, who his version of traumatized dog is a little bit more abused, similar to him. Where like Yui is, and again, those Noel Yui's parallels. Yui is like, she is a cat that was abused while it was being brought up. She wasn't just neglected, she was abused. Which, I mean, neglect
Yeah,
is a form of abuse, but you get how I'm using them here.
right. We don't want to like describe how you would abuse a cat, but I
Yes.
think we can all
Yeah,
assume.
that's what it is. I don't want to, in this pod, in this live, I don't want to go into vivid
Right.
types of cat abuse. So neglect is also a form of
Also
abuse,
to
but you get what I'm getting at.
right. Also to clarify, I was not saying Sphinx because of the bald thing, because we all know I feel very strongly that Yui and bald jokes aren't funny and they fall pretty flat on me because Yui does choose to keep her hair short. Um, I was just thinking about sphinxes because of the fact that I was thinking about the energy levels and what happens when they've got that pent up energy. So I just want to put that out there for people.
They've got
And
the kind of parallel in that they require a lot of care to their appearance to like fit in with the other
mm-hmm,
cats. Where
right.
like for example, Sphynx cats, you have to like oil them daily or something. And that's
Yeah,
kind of
you
what
got to
Yui
bathe
does.
them on a weekly
The same.
basis.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so it's like Yui does these things not because she personally gets satisfaction from it, but because like in the world she lives in with these other cats and dogs, she's gotta feed the part.
she's got to do it on a performative basis, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's why I feel like a sphinx could fit, but I do think you're right. It's more of like it's a cat in general that has been abused. So it could be, a sphinx who has been abused, but it could just be, like your standard domestic short hair cat who has been abused. I
Yes.
mean, let's be honest, it's probably some kind of pedigree cat. And,
Yeah. It definitely is.
it's in fact, okay, because we're talking parallels and how this ties directly into her character, it's probably a cat that somebody was breeding and there's something slightly wrong with it, so it doesn't
Ooh.
make for a perfect show cat slash, you can't sell it for as much money and
You're so,
therefore,
so right.
you know, right? And therefore it's
The
either
throwaway
discarded
cat is
to
a very expensive breed.
yep, to somebody who winds up abusing it. So, right, like
Yes,
that
that
trust
is
is
totally
broken.
me.
Oh, that makes me so sad. Why did we create such a sad
That's we're just being honest. But okay, let's pivot away from the
right,
sad.
like this is okay, yeah, let's move on to Meg. We can't do this.
Meg. This is why we're fishing with Meg.
Meg. So Alyssa's definitely a cat. Meg.
I do feel like Meg is a dog from her behavior, where we've seen that she has that same kind of like dog brand impulsivity and like enthusiasm that we've seen from characters like Shanae or even Soshi. And we we see that kind of like similar energy of like she's like she does what she wants, what feels good to her, but she's still always kind of seeking that approval from others. And she
Yes.
has, from what we see of her college days, she seems to have a lot of like kind of friendliness and friendships that don't go very deep. Kind of one of those dogs that like they'll hang around with anyone, they'll be excited about everyone. They really want the attention and approval of all these people, but they've still got those certain people in their head who like that's like they're really loyal to those people, you know? And they
Right.
like that's what they really want, but they'll fill the void in with everyone around them.
You're just like there to pass the time. They don't really love you like that.
Yeah, Kiko's saying Pomeranian. Zebra is saying Meg is like a dog who never learns manners, so she acts wrong. I kind of agree. Like, I part of what I'm seeing is like, for example, how she interacts with her parents. Like, she does all these things that are quote unquote wrong, similar to like a dog that's kind of not housebroken, but then when they come back and she gets chastised for it, it's so clear that she does really want that approval, and like she's kind of like she's fighting back, but internally she's got that kind of like sad dog energy. As opposed to like a cat who like if a cat pees in the house, they're like
Right.
I peed in the house.
Right. We could, possibly dog shame Meg.
Yes. Yeah.
What a fun random tangent this was.
Yeah.
Was it Hi 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 who brought this up?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Yes, thank you. It was okay, but this is the kind of stuff I was looking
No,
for.
this is
So,
good. Yeah. And like when would we ever in a different pod do this? Ooh, to wrap up, we've got a last kind of chime in from Hi 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 who asked the question originally. Well actually before that we have EJ saying about Meg that she's like a dog that loves their owner but doesn't receive that unconditional love back. And I do think that's right.
very
But Hi Hi
true.
Hi. Hi 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 summarized what we've got and she said Kosuke cat, specifically a sopping wet cat. Alyssa, cat, specifically
Yes.
kind of like and always in the room, but always at the corner, sort of skittish cat. Noel, dog, guarding dog or sheep dog. Janae, dog, traumatized, neglected dog. Dieter, cat / capybara. Soshi, dog. Maya, little yippy dog. Eugene, queen cat. Rand, Doberman dog. Hansuke, dog. Yui, traumatized, abused cat. Meg, dog, Pomeranian. Shinhei, cat, street cat / weasel. Minhyuk, dog,
Feral
golden
cat.
retriever. Feral cat for Shinhei, yes. Minhyuk, dog, golden retriever. Jace, cat, that kind of like comfortable cat.
We've got a question asking where we fall on the scale of cat to dog.
I am very much a cat myself.
Oh, yeah. We are cats.
Yeah. One of my friends says that he feels honored to be my friend because he feels like he's been adopted by a cat.
Yeah. I'm a cat, and I know I'm probably more in that territory of like a ragdoll cat, where it's like you can be friendly and cuddly, but like I'm not a standoffish cat. I can be a
Yeah.
skittish cat.
I
When somebody rings the doorbell, Moo and I both kind of go, "What the fuck was that?"
I am like creature of habit cat
Oh
where like
yes. Oh
I've
God,
got my
yes.
things
Same.
yeah,
Mhm.
I've got my things that I like. I've got my people that I like, but I like to be
You got to
in
keep the
my toys
routine.
by myself or with those
Mhm.
specific
Mhm.
people. I have my toys that I need with me at every moment in time and I will not accept others. Um
You
like
don't want to be bothered when you're not in the mood for it.
yes, but like when I am in the mood to I'm like you are my whole life. This is my whole life. Whatever it is, my entire life in existence right now.
Yes. Yes, you can be like super clingy and claustrophobic. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. See, we're
Yep.
cats. There's no question
Absolutely.
about it. Kiko is
Um
3000% a dog. Like
yeah.
there's no question about it, Kiko. Like you will sit in the park and you will yap at any dog who comes by. Like if they want to sit and listen to you, you're down. But also, Carmi, I think, well, okay, I'm biased, guys. I obviously am. Like, I want to say Carmi, dog, because, I know. But also, there's a part of me that's just like, I just see cat in you. And it's probably just because school runs you down so much that
I
maybe if we didn't see you so run down, I would see more dog in you.
I think Carmi's got kind of like the cat quip, you know?
Yeah. Listen.
I love how we spent the past hour on cats and dogs.
Listen, I know.
think this has
We're
been
definitely going to have a second episode.
Yeah, this is truly what I envisioned.
Unless we go 4 hours, so.
Yeah, the title of this, the title is it will have Q&A somewhere in the episode. It will probably be a part 1. Honestly, I like chaos Q&A.
Truly. I mean, I guess it depends on how much we edit it, to be honest.
Yes. I think the content is still chaotic because I mean we did just go on this whole tirade about the characters as cats and dogs, and then we talked about us as cats and dogs. So
I guess, yeah, we can include that too.
yeah, we have reached our 4-hour mark, and we've also lost a bit of the chat. We still have a lot of the chat here. Shout out to all you guys.
I just want to point out we've had like the biggest, like the most amount of participants in
This
here
has been
that
awesome.
we have like
You
ever
guys
had.
came out.
And we still have so many questions.
Yes. I feel like we definitely don't have the time to get into anything else. Do we want to kind of record some sort of outro, cut it here, and then save and organize the questions we have left into part 2?
I think so, because we also have the submissions.
Yes.
I told you guys I wanted audience participation because it would be so helpful to us, and it honestly made things even more fun and really
Right, look at the cats and dogs things we had.
And it also just like enhanced the experience because like we are here playing off of you guys, and that's again, I said it earlier, but this is why the pod is in the Discord. I like, like we've had podcast episodes where we've only had like 2 listeners with us, and it's, I get it, but like it's so fun when we have,
it's more
people in here.
This was really fun. All right. So we tonight have covered our thoughts on the time skip, which was kind of a series of a couple of different questions from different people that we rolled into one cohesive segment. And we also had our tangent into the cast as cats and dogs, which has been really fun. But we still have a bunch of questions that our awesome audience in the chat with us right now submitted throughout the course of being here with us, a whole bunch of discussion points that people brought up in the chat, as well as our submissions from our Discord submissions channel and our YouTube community post, which means we have already spent as much time as we can tonight covering the topics we have, but we intend to get to every question that has been submitted to us. And that means that we are going to need a part 2 to this. So if you sent a question in the chat or if you sent a submission, fret not. We will be getting to it. But I think this is where we wrap up the episode for tonight. And we come back in the near future with the rest of our special episode question and answers.
I want to once again say thank you to everybody who attended this recording and participated with us in the chat. It has been so much fun. I really loved having everyone's participation and just getting to see a lot of the conversation going on alongside us. Absolutely so much fun. You guys really made this whole episode just a delight to record.
We love this community so much, and we've missed you guys so much. Like, we really, really wanted to do this episode because it's just been so long, and we really strive for that.
We always planned to come back after the hiatus ended, but it's clearly gone on a lot longer than anybody anticipated. So I'm really glad we have a lot of questions that allow us to make more episodes so that we can continue interacting with you guys and getting to yap at great length about I Love You in a way that we haven't been able to do in such a long time.
Yeah, this has been a really great kind of return to form and like return to community for us.
So thank you for joining us, or thank you for listening to us if you're currently doing that. We'll see you guys in the next one.